What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's Deckin Around. My name is Tyler.
I'm Steve.
And we are so excited to have Holly Carden on the show. For anyone who doesn't know Holly, she is an amazing illustrator who currently has a Kickstarter live for Count Dracula's Bran Castle Jigsaw puzzle. Holly is actually going to be our first non-playing card related creator. So we are so pumped to sit down and talk to Holly today and really find out what it's like to be in that creator's space on Kickstarter, not in the playing card world, which we're all familiar with.
And I'm excited.
It's going to be amazing. Like I absolutely loved the puzzle when we saw it the first time around. That was actually one of our fun puzzles fun campaigns for the week. And Holly and I started chatting on Instagram, and I was talking to you, Steve, and I was just like, dude, we should just have her on the show. It'd be awesome.
And I'm like, duh. Yeah.
Dude, it's always really interesting to see what the whole space looks like outside of playing cards, because Kickstarter is such a large kind of creator space with so many different niches. Every time we go on there, we see, films and books, playing cards, tarots, puzzles, all this crazy stuff. And it's always expanding. So to get a perspective from someone who's in a different creator space is really interesting. I'm really excited for this, man.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about it, she just didn't, produce the deck. She also illustrated it. So it's kind of similar to what, we're usually involved in. So it's going to be exciting to see an illustrator from that side of the world.
And I can only imagine the amount of detail and research that goes into something like that as well. I think it's cool because you still have that illustrative freedom, but at the same time, especially with like this Bran Castle one, you're working off of like a legit kind of idea. So the idea of having, an existing structure that you have to base it off of, it's a lot, man.
Yeah. And the puzzle, if anybody hasn't seen it yet,
that's dope.
Like, it is super dope. Super dope.
Which, if you haven't checked it out yet, there is a link in the description down below. You should absolutely go check this thing out, because I have to say, for anyone who loves puzzles, it's fun. And back it, man. I mean, it's absolutely a cool puzzle. There's a lot of it's funny. We'll talk to Holly about this when she gets on. It almost gives me a little bit of a Where's Waldo vibe, because there's so much going on in it, and you have so much like little pieces you can stare at and find all this cool detail, which I really love.
He's in the library.
So you ready to do this, man?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Everyone, let's roll into it. What's up, Holly? How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Is my hair huge? I tried to make it as big.
It looks
you need to make it bigger. I think bigger is better for sure.
Go dial up the humidity a little bit, get it to really flow out, and there you go.
Yeah.
So how you doing this weekend?
I am doing well. I've been taking it easy. Like I told you before, my tablet died a couple of days ago, and so I used that opportunity to get some rest and relaxation, but I just got a new one delivered today, so I have to go back to work now, but that's okay. I got a lot to do.
You know what the nice thing is, though? You were telling us that beforehand that your studio and your home are the same place, so at least you always get to work from home, which is probably a nice little thing, but you don't have to worry about like, oh no, now I have to go into an office because my tablet broke.
It is very handy to just be able to walk in the other room and get to work. And it also allows me to kind of like, I feel like I do still have work-life balance, because I kind of weave my regular life and my work together, so if I want to take a little bit of time out to work on something, but then like go cook dinner or like do the dishes or whatever. So it's really helpful to like maximize time so I'm not having to commute and stuff. But it does get a little stir crazy in here. So I do have some coffee shops and stuff around the city that I'll frequent and work sometimes.
Yeah, I find because I work at home as well, and I find that sometimes, you're walking from your office to the kitchen and you see the couch and you're like,
oh yeah,
just 20 minutes. And then you wake up an hour later and you're like,
yeah, all your fun stuff is in that room,
You do laundry, you just do all this other stuff, which is definitely productive, but at the same
time,
procrastination
is what I call it. It's going to be done, but it shouldn't probably done while I'm in the middle of work. But
I don't know. I think it probably recharges the batteries sometimes, maybe
Yeah.
not as often as we do it, but I'm sure there are times when you absolutely need it. And I think during COVID, so many people kind of fell into that trap because they were all working from home, and you're just like, oh man, yeah, I'm gonna go do laundry. And then you get sidetracked by something, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it's an
Mhm.
hour later, and you're like, well, I was really productive in that hour, but not as it was related to work.
Yeah,
So-
and I've been working from home for about 5 or 6 years now, so I definitely got some practice. So I feel for all the people who are just experiencing work from home for the first time, because there are a lot of benefits. But initially, when I first switched to that, I went a little nuts. Like, I need other people. I'm very extroverted, and I kind of get my energy from other people. And so, like, being at home all the time, even back before COVID, when I could actually go out, I was still like going a little nuts inside. But I've gotten used to it now, and I've kind of been able to figure out a balance, but it has taken 5 years to get to this point.
Yeah, it takes a while for sure. I mean, it's funny because Tyler obviously for the past year and a half was working from home, and then all of a sudden he has to go back to work, and he's like,
Dude, you realize real quick how much time commuting takes. Like, all of a sudden it's like, all right, there's 7 hours a week. That's an entire work day.
Dude, I
now
can't
in a
go
car.
back. I can't go back. And I bet, Steve, you probably can't go back either, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know if I could ever step in the corporate environment again. If
Yeah.
I can, it has to be on my terms.
Yeah.
Like, I worked at this winery, and basically I was like, I would love, I was an in-house photographer with them, and I was like, I'd love to work here, but these are my stipulations. I come in when I want, I leave when I want. I get the work done that you guys need, but it's on like my time. Basically,
Yeah.
I want an office away from everybody, so I don't have to like hear the stuff I don't need to hear. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm very picky when it comes to that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, yeah, that's one of the hardest parts. One of the hardest parts, honestly, is like you get used to the quiet. As much as, like you said, the human interaction is a tough one, but that quiet when you need to focus is priceless. And going back into an office and hearing like 38 different phone calls around you and people catching up, and it's all nice and good to see people, but when you want to like grind something out, it's tough. Like, thankfully we're on a hybrid schedule, so I'm like 3 days in the office, 2 days home, and those 2 days I'm home, like, I'm working on everything I couldn't focus on in the office because of people.
Deckin Around.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thankfully our schedule's a little lighter with Deckin Around, so I don't need to multitask like that these days. But so, Holly, for anyone who doesn't know what your kind of background is as it relates to creation or just in general, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what you do for a living and how you kind of got into the creator space in Kickstarter?
Well, I started my business in 2015. I graduated art school and just went directly into freelance. And it was definitely a hustle at first. That first year, I think I made $8,000 all year off illustration stuff. Work was kind of fizzling out around 2016. So that's when I took the opportunity to make Murder Castle. I just thought of like, what is the dream project that I want to work on right now while I have time?
Anything that has to do with murder is dream, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I was listening to some true crime stuff at the time, and H.H. Holmes came up, and of course this building they described, I wanted to see it, but there's no pictures that burned down. I'm like, well, that's my job, is to draw pictures that don't exist. So I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and draw. And so that did well on Kickstarter. It was my first Kickstarter. And then I was doing a lot of, like, my business has always been split between, ever since then, puzzles and freelance work. And it started off really freelance heavy. I mainly was doing maps. I did the Nashville Zoo map, college campus maps. I went ahead and added in cutaways to that because I've always loved cutaways ever since I was a kid. And for those who don't know, that's like when there's a building or structure and the front is cut out and you can see all the juicy bits on the inside. Love it. And so one thing that a guy I interned with in college, he told me is, you've got to draw the stuff you want to get hired to do. Like, if you want to do gig posters, you have to make gig posters so people know you can make gig posters. So I was like, the illustration I want to do is cutaways and like the Where's Waldo style. It's called Wimmelbild. And that's a
Wimmelbild?
Wimmelbild starts with W. It's like a German word, but it means an image that's teeming with details.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of a European style. I think it kind of originated in the Dutch Renaissance with someone like the Hieronymus Bosch and Peter the Elder, Bruegels the Elder. And so that was always a source of inspiration for me. And then like kids books like Where's Waldo and stuff like that. So I wanted to, whenever possible, whenever I was putting a proposal in for a job, I would always, do a couple of sketches, but do that one like the best. Like that's the trick, is if they want a couple of ideas, you just draw the one you want to do better than the other one, and they'll always go for that one.
Yeah.
So I started incorporating cutaways. I did a cutaway tour map of the Ryman Auditorium, which is cool.
Oh, wow.
I did one for a local restaurant, which was filled with like animals and stuff. So that was fun. So I, over the course of time, I've been able to focus on jobs that I want, which is ideal because I definitely worked on a lot of garbage projects at the beginning.
Don't we all?
And, I've been able to like slide that freelance over to puzzles. And the goal is to be just doing like all my own stuff. Yeah. And I'm mostly at this point because 2018 I did Edgar Allen Poe, which was the second puzzle.
Awesome.
And that's like a big mansion, and each of the rooms is one of the short stories. So that was cool. And it kind of took me from the murder market to the literature market, because I was kind of trying to distance myself a little bit from capitalizing on the murder of hundreds of people.
I mean, there was some murder in his stories as well.
Yeah, well, there's a big body count in both, as there is in Dracula, but you know, it's vampires. So
and it's fictional murder versus like legit real life murder.
Exactly, just the dark depths of our minds. This is all it is.
Vampires are real.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely been knee deep in vampires for the last, I started Dracula, the sketches and stuff, right after Poe in 2018. I had hired my sister. She's like super into history, and she helped me do some of the research. And you had mentioned this sketchbook, see how messed up it is. It's got so many notes and research and blueprints and stuff. So she helped me with that and helped me gather reference material and stuff. One of the things that I love about the cutaways is basing it on an actual building, because I love the challenge of translating that architecture into like a 3D drawing, and so that's really cool. The Edgar Allen Poe one was a made-up building. I thought that would be easier, but it was actually more difficult, having no guidance and also no ability to design architecture. So, but that was pretty cool and it's just kind of like a crazy hodgepodge. But this one was interesting because it is an actual castle. The blueprints are old as hell, tiny JPEG-y blueprints. And now, since the place exists, there is a pretty cool Google walkthrough, but it wasn't totally comprehensive. So I was able to piece together different references, and it's close. It's kind of close. But yeah, that was fun. And then you get to just fill it with stuff. So then I got to decide where I could put all the scenes from the book, and I had to listen to it over and over, obviously. But it turned out well. I'm glad to finally have it done. I had to push it back a couple times because I worked on a board game and a couple of other projects, but it got to a point where I'd pushed it back for 2 years, and I was like, I'm just going to wrap up all my freelance and just work on this alone until it's finished. I'm doing it. And I did it. And so now it's off my to-do list after 3 years.
Dude, that's awesome. That must have been so good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is also kind of weird because these projects are so, I don't know why I always want to do the most time consuming, detailed, arduous project ever. But once they're done, there's kind of this weird postpartum thing, because I'm used to getting up every morning and I know what I'm doing. I'm inking this drawing that I've been inking for the last month. And when I don't have that, I'm just kind of floating around, what am I supposed to do with myself now? So the first week after I was done, I was kind of just a space cadet. But it's a way
to work on another project.
That is the exciting thing, because I try to keep things as flexible as possible, so that I don't like to have too much planned out, because I like to be able to take that time after it to think about what I feel like doing. And funnily enough, as I had told you before, the next project I've been hired to do a card deck, and I haven't finished working out the details with the client, but I hope that goes through, because that would be really fun, and I'd love to tap your insight.
Oh, for sure. That's exciting.
So one of the cool things is one of the probably best illustrators in the playing card community. He's actually in the chat right now. His name is Jackson Robinson. You may see him in the chat as King's Wild Project. So there you go.
And he just did his first puzzle.
There you go. Yay, playing cards. So yeah, he just did. Yeah. So
nice.
he's in the process of his first puzzle. So we'll have to make sure you two link up and are able to pick each other's brains as well. Jackson is a phenomenal illustrator and actually started in, well, I mean, one of the big things he started in was like the game, like video game field. So so he went from video games to playing cards and now does his own thing with his own playing cards all day long. So
that's cool. And whenever I find another illustrator who's done a puzzle, and there's more and more doing that now, I like to do a puzzle swap.
That's really cool.
That way we get to, you know, share puzzles with each other.
Yeah, he's definitely the way to go. A good person
guy,
to be in touch with.
Cool, Jackson. Let's do a puzzle swap.
He'd love that.
Work on a puzzle together.
Puzzle collabs.
I actually have a collaboration coming up next year, and I've never really collaborated with anyone before, and I'm definitely eager to do that because one thing about running the whole business by myself and not having that feedback that I used to in art school and be able to bounce ideas off of people, it's nice to not have to accommodate anybody else, but it's also like just my own ideas regurgitating themselves. So it's always good to get feedback. And, you know, I have a circle of other artists that I'll send stuff to for feedback and stuff, but it'll be cool to work with someone else, with another illustrator on a project. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
really
he's
cool.
worked with some of the best in the business, not like just playing cards, but like big corporations that like,
he just did he did a collab for handkerchiefs with Colin Hanks not too long ago.
Oh, I saw those. No, I
Yeah.
followed him and I love those hankies.
So
he also just did a deck for Eric Church. A couple
Yeah.
decks for Eric
Nice.
Church.
Yeah,
Like
so-
Jackson's big time.
Okay, we
He's got
love Jackson. I'm going
Yes.
to follow him.
There you go.
I mean,
He does some fun
he's big
stuff,
time.
so,
he has a
yeah.
Lord of the Rings deck coming out soon.
But that being said, I mean, it's interesting to see because do you find that the illustrator space is very collaborative? Do you find it easy to reach out to other illustrators, or is it really like a lot of kind of legwork on top of it all to make those connections?
No, I've actually found the illustration community to be really approachable and friendly. I don't feel like there's a ton of competition because everyone has their own style.
Yeah.
Mine's particularly niche. Like there aren't a ton of people doing it. There's more and more, especially ever since the Vim Will Build subreddit came out, and that type of art's become more popular. So it's cool to see more of that. But you know, there's so many different styles of illustration out there. And you know, if I get a job inquiry of something that I think someone else will do a better job of, it's cool to have a list of different illustrators that you can refer jobs to. So that's really cool. Or if there's, you know, another illustrator doesn't have time to work on something, they'll kick it to me. So that's really cool. You know, I have illustrators reaching out for advice on puzzles sometimes, and I've definitely reached out to others for like, I know once I took on a job that used Adobe Illustrator, and I hadn't used Illustrator in forever, and I was like, yeah, I could use Illustrator. And I was like, okay, who knows Illustrator that I can reach out to? And I was like, all right, we're gonna do a crash course. So yeah, I found the illustration community super warm and helpful, and I've never come across like an Illustrator jerk. Yeah. I'm sure they're out there. But.
Yeah, no, but you know what though? Probably no one wants to work with them, or they don't get as much visibility, and so they're harder to find in that capacity. Jackson actually raised a good point too, because he said, "Aren't you in Nashville?" He's actually just outside of Chattanooga as well. So you guys are, so this is just the stars are aligning here.
Yeah, that's just
I smell a collaboration.
That would be sick. But well, and it's exciting to see though too, because I think, you know, the illustrator space, I don't think people really put so much thought, at least on the consumer side, until like you have more creators coming out now and really focusing on, hi, I'm an illustrator, this is what I do. I think historically we've always seen illustration and just kind of accepted it as a part of your day. You know, you see advertising, you see video games, you see puzzles, and you don't ever sit there and think, I wonder who drew this. You think, hey, this is cool, let me do a puzzle. Now there's so much more visibility on the creator, especially because of Kickstarter and similar platforms. How have you found that like following that you get, that you specifically get because of that? Have you found it to be helpful? Have you found it to be supportive? Have you found it to be weird?
No, absolutely. And, you know, it used to be that illustrators were only, like you said, only visible to like art directors and designers. Like there'd be this illustrators index that would come out periodically. And if you made it in the book, that's where the art directors were picking illustrators from, and everyone else was kind of screwed. But now with Instagram, like you know, the whole internet is your own directory, and you can, you know, post what you want. And one thing that has really attracted people to follow me and stay in my email list and all that stuff is because of the process work I post. For every big project, I'll do a blog, which is sometimes probably more wordy than it needs to be. Just kind of like explaining the whole process and, you know, the stuff I've learned from it. Because each time I do this, I learn a little bit more about my process, because it's kind of like self-manifesting. It's not like planned. So it's been cool to see it like develop and be able to hone that. And I think that it's helped people appreciate the amount of work that goes into it. Because, you know, not to dog on digital art, I use digital art all the time for, you know, projects that I need to knock out faster. But, you know, to do everything by hand is a little more rare these days. And, you know, honestly, it's a little self-indulgent because I just really enjoy it. But I think people like to see that, and you know, being able to post time-lapse videos, I've just kind of figured out how to do that. So it's nice to be able to post these things that otherwise would never get seen, you know. You know, so on the one hand, it is kind of weird to, you know, to attach myself to the work as a person, and for it not to just be the work like it used to be. But that's kind of fun. Like, I'm totally comfortable with, you know, I tend to overshare on social media, but other than that, it's fine.
It's good though. That's what it's about, honestly.
Yeah, I like the attention.
And that's good though. You know, I think it's funny because we see it all the time. Like, brands that are, I mean, I think there's two, you know, to oversimplify, there's two ways brands can go. Brands can be very kind of anonymous entities, or they can be very person specific. And I think that person specific side of brands has really come about because of social media and that visibility into it. I mean, if you really think about, like, you know, fashion's a perfect one, like Michael Kors. Like, there's a lot of named brands, but like, unless you're in fashion, you don't know who Michael Kors is. You just know that Michael Kors is a brand of fashion. Same with, like, you know, that whole space of the creation of individuals as brands now. Because of social media, you now get to overshare. And I think actually people appreciate it though, because they want that human connection. They really want to see that a creator isn't just a nameless, faceless person anymore who's putting out awesome stuff. They want to know how you got to the awesome stuff, the story behind it all and everything.
Yeah, they want to connect with the brand more than just buying it and, you know, having their brand on them, or, you know, whatever, representing their brand. If they know the person behind it, they can represent it more. And I think, yeah, it's definitely a cool world we live in because of that. You know, some people you can not support because they don't really put themselves out there at all.
Yeah, I definitely have found that connecting with customers has been really fulfilling for both of us, because people want to support small artists. They want to, you know, it feels good. Like, I do love buying art as well. I have, you know, lots of illustration and art in my house from people I admire. And I always love to, you know the backstory and, you know, find out what kind of illustrator they are, and it definitely makes the art mean more. You know, so I definitely feel like it is nice to have that human connection to it, rather than just like some Ravensburger with a Thomas Kincaid painting on it. Not there's anything wrong with that.
But yeah, it's definitely you know, I think it's fun to see how those brands develop. And like you said, you know, the whole oversharing aspect of it, like, I think that's all part of the adventure and part of the style. Like, we've seen the rise of influencers in that personal brand creation, but there's no one real formula, because when you're connecting on that personal level, I think you get to connect with people who like your style and like what you do and want to support you. But I also think it makes everyone realize that, like, we're not all as one-off as we expect to be. We're not all the only person who has thoughts along these lines. And so you post something that you think is funny and you're like, no one else is going to think that's funny. And like 50 people reach out and they're like, this is hilarious. And it's like, you build those connections where it becomes so much more emotionally tuned versus just like, hey, that's a cool picture, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's also been cool to, I think, as long as it's earnest, like some of the communities that I became a part of to learn more about what people want in puzzles. There's like Jigsaw puzzle enthusiast groups and the Jigsaw puzzle subreddit and stuff like that. And so, you know, when I was first starting out, asking what's important to you in a puzzle, like Can I get some feedback on this and that? But then to, actually become part of those communities, it's not like I'm just jumping in there and being like, here, I want to sell you this puzzle. It's like, oh, like I've been, part of this community for, this much time. Like, one of you, like, check this out. And it's definitely a lot better received. But I think that it's important that all that social media interaction is earnest, because I think people can tell if it's not,
Yeah. No, for sure.
So yeah, I think it's just good to like be yourself and do it. And I do definitely understand artists that don't want to do that, because I know a lot of artists and a lot of them are not like this and they just want to draw and be left alone.
They're very introverted.
And as long as the work is good, it doesn't matter if you want to put yourself out there or not, to be honest.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Well, yeah, and again, that's also just being true to yourself as well, because if you're a major introvert, getting out there and really trying to force it is going to feel strained, and people are going to pick up on that, and they may not know what they're picking up on, but that could sour them to it. So you really do have to be true to yourself in that aspect. And, that's the other nice part about it, is that second kind of oversimplified view is you can still be a nameless, faceless brand these days. You can just put out, a social media account with a made up brand name, and you never have to post a picture of yourself, and you just focus solely on art. And people love that too. And that's how so many new brands still flourish. So it's crazy to see how that brand development ties so into the actual creator space these days.
Yeah, I could have been anonymous and been like the Banksy of puzzles.
I mean,
that'd be cool.
Banksy's doing pretty well for himself though, too. So, maybe it wasn't a bad approach on his part. So.
Yeah.
That's what made him who he is, right? Is that like silence of who he is. I mean, it's just, it works. It works for some people, definitely.
And so for you, like, what was the big kind of push into puzzles versus, and I think when I was reading through your like about me on your website, it talked a little bit about illustrating books and things along those lines. Like, have you always had a fascination with puzzles? Is that something that came from like childhood, or was it really just something where you're like, hey, puzzles are a cool medium for what I want to do?
Yeah, well, actually, like, I've only put together a couple of puzzles in my life, and those are like the prototypes for my products. So it's not like I was a puzzler, but the type of art I do is just really conducive to that. And my mom is super into puzzles, and, it's something that I had in the back of my mind, because they're, some of the illustrators that I admire have puzzles and stuff. Jan van Haverstein, I think is his name, but he's, a popular one from back in the day. But yeah, she loves puzzles and stuff. She's like, you should really do this. And so what I did was, I was nervous about doing it because it was my first Kickstarter. It was Murder Castle. I posted the picture on Reddit, I think on the art subreddit, and then I went to bed and I woke up and it was like on the front page. And I was nice. Shit, I got to do a Kickstarter. So I put the Kickstarter up, and then that's kind of what made it take off. And I was like, all right. And I didn't like in that moment be like, I'm going to make a line of jigsaw puzzles. It was just kind of like, I just wanted to do another one. And then one thing led to another. And then my goal was like, I want to do 5 puzzles. And I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And I never expected that there would be a puzzle boom. Like, I felt that was a pretty modest profession, is designing jigsaw puzzles. But it's been a weird silver lining around COVID, because, every puzzle manufacturer just got swamped. Yeah. And so people that were already making puzzles were, we all sold out immediately. It was kind of cool. Like, I got to talk to a couple of other small puzzle companies, because we'd all be like, where are you getting your puzzles made? Because everyone's got like a year lead time now. So it was kind of like a scramble for everybody at first. And then, of course, we've got this influx of other artists and stuff who are wanting to get in on it too. But and it's still very busy. Like, I order my puzzles a year in advance at this point. Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah. And so it also gives me a deadline though, because like when I was doing Dracula, and I told you, like, I was just like, I'm going to get this done. And so I went ahead and bought the puzzles last year. Nice. And I was like, Marcel, when do you need the art? And he's like, we need it this day. All right, that's when my deadline is. And it kind of kills me, because like I got it done, but when it was ready to turn in, there was just like all these little spaces and opportunities and Easter eggs and stuff I wanted to put in. And I'm just like, oh, I just want one more day. So I didn't have that time, but I think what I'm going to do is release another print, which has some of the extra content in it that I want to add in there.
Nice.
But sometimes I've just got to be like, Holly, just stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the sign of a perfectionist, right?
Oh,
Like there's always more to add, you know, and it's crazy because it's so, I mean, I don't know if cool is the right word, but it's so cool to see that another industry / community was experiencing the same thing we were because of the influx in demand. You know, like playing cards is so backed up now to this day still, because so many people were coming out of the woodwork saying, I want to create a playing card deck, you know, and everything's backed up, you know, mainly because of Jackson's fault, because he's using all these companies. But yeah, it's crazy to see, you know, that the puzzle world was the same way. But it makes sense, you know, things that people were doing at home were just increasing. You know?
And it wasn't just that either. Like COVID had a major impact, like getting the puzzles shipped. I get them shipped from Europe. It was a nightmare last year. Like there was massive port congestion. I don't know if many people outside of the logistics world knows this, but Savannah was just like stacked with, like, my puzzles sat in Savannah for like months.
Yeah,
there's also a cardboard shortage. Like some people were not able to like get boxes to ship stuff. So, you know, there were a lot of different factors that, and also the mail was delayed, and so
shipping containers, like there's a lot of stuff going on to this.
So there was a lot against us, but then the demand on top of that, you know, and everyone like saw it on the news how crazy stuff was, so all the customers were pretty chill about it and understanding, which was nice. But yeah, it's been a weird ride, and I really hope that this Christmas season is not as bananas as it was last year.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's cross our fingers.
I think hopefully as the world kind of weathers more of the whole pandemic going on, things will kind of start to return to normal a little bit. I think in that capacity, you know, extenuating circumstances always cause increases in price, but like as this becomes hopefully not the new norm, but as it becomes more of a new norm, hopefully we'll see things. I mean, the whole container ship in the canal last year with the a Chinese ship that basically blocked everything. It was like, oh, your shipment will be there in a month. Just kidding, it'll be there in 4. It's like there's so many unexpected things that can ultimately happen there, and you got to roll with it. That is the one great thing about Kickstarter, though, is as long as you're a communicative creator, people are cool with it. They just want to know. They want to be kept up to date. And, you know, it's funny, you know, I'm sure having done a couple campaigns now, you've seen like there is no right answer of how often you should update, because there are people who would literally want an update every day. And you can't be like, same as yesterday, every single day, because then the people who only want to know when things happen are going to be like, oh, I'm going to mute this thing and now I'm never going to hear anything. And you end up having people who miss out on important information. But
exactly. Yeah, I do that. I've operated with that based on my own preferences with backing stuff. Like when I back a Kickstarter, if I'm getting updates like, you know, every few days, I'm not going to read any of them. But I try to be really sparing, not just with the Kickstarter updates, but also just with my mailing list in general. I'll only send one out like every 6 months, like, or if I have a major announcement or whatever, because I don't want to abuse having their email address, you know, and I feel like it's kind of walking on eggshells, you know, because every time you send it out, you're going to have a couple unfollows or whatever. But I think, you know, if I respect people's attention and don't overdo it, and make sure that when that update comes out, it's juicy, you know, like I've got one thing I'm sending out with the update tomorrow is I've got a couple of videos. Like I got Marcel to send me a video of the puzzles on the line, which was cool.
That's really cool.
And it's also proof that they exist, which I know is very important to Kickstarter backers. But yeah, it's definitely a fine line between like, you know, informing people and then just bugging the shit out of people. So
yeah, no, that's true. You know, now how many puzzles do you have lined up already?
As far as designs or like inventory?
Designs.
The Dracula one will be my 3rd. I have like a running list of ideas for the next ones, obviously, and I get customers will send suggestions all the time. Like some of the top ones would be Jack the Ripper to do a map of his whole thing.
That'd be dope.
Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment.
Oh, jeez.
Ed Gein and where it. So I'm like I said, I'm just like I don't want to do too much of the true crime stuff. But also H.P. Lovecraft is probably.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate the support, man.
Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm gonna go ahead and take credit for that.
Yeah.
All the
H.P. Lovecraft would be dope, though. I mean, that's one thing that we see on Kickstarter. There's such a following for Lovecraft that what did we just see? A Cthulhu deck came out, and that thing blew up. Like people love that whole like cult following of H.P. Lovecraft has become so mainstream now, which is awesome. Yeah,
I did a painting, a Lovecraft painting for a Lovecraft show a few years ago, and I'm not a huge fan of the writing. But the descriptions of the great old ones, like I just went on Wikipedia and some of those descriptions are amazing. And I was like, I have to draw this stuff. So, you know, that could make a really cool puzzle. Like I said, I don't know that I want to slog through all the reading. Like I don't really care about it. And he was also kind of a problematic figure. So I don't know about that. But there's so many possibilities of what I could do. But on the flip side, like public domain, there's a lot of content possibilities out there, but there are other illustrators starting to do some of the public domain stuff. And not that we can't all do the same stories. It's actually kind of cool to see how different people interpret it. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, do I need the public domain stuff anymore? Like, you know, can I go off and do some of my own stuff? Because I got a couple of design ideas in mind for, you know, that would be based on just my own art stuff. But at the same time, like it definitely is easier to hop on the fan base of Edgar Allan Poe, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing, if you do a Kickstarter, you know, obviously being a creator, you it's kind of like an email list, so to speak, you know, where you have your backers' information. And when you do come out with a new campaign, all those backers get to see it. You know, and so if they are fans, they're going to continue to follow and you know pick up more, obviously. But I think you know that's definitely a benefit of having.
And seeing that fan base snowball has been really cool because it happens slow enough that I don't really see it happening. But when I reflect, it's like all these people from different sources. Like, luckily, I'm one of the best-selling puzzles on Etsy, so I get a lot of visibility through that. And that's like Etsy and Society6 and all those sites. It's just kind of a crapshoot. If you happen to get your product in as one of the first of that thing, and you can, you know, and you do a good job, like, and you stay at the top, like that's going to be one of the first searches. So I get a lot of traffic from Etsy.
Nice.
You know, every time you do a Kickstarter, you get more exposure there. And then, you know, people who've listened to old podcasts that I've done that I've been mentioned on, and podcast episodes last forever. So like, you know, someone will listen to old podcasts I was on. So there's all these different sources where people are finding out, and it's not a ton, it's a modest amount, but seeing that build each time, there's a certain amount of people that if I release a puzzle, they're going to buy it. And so as that grows, that'll allow me to do weirder stuff that isn't necessarily an existing fan base. So
right. Yeah. Hey, there is absolutely nothing wrong with tapping into existing fan base. And I am a huge fan of, and I totally understand doing your own work. That makes total sense. You know, you're a creator, you want to create, you know, but I think it's a good way to get to a certain point where you don't have to do that, you know, and you just build up such a big fan base that you can do your own work, you know, rather than starting off a little earlier, doing your own work and building up a little slower.
Yeah.
And just all of a sudden getting that big fan base, you know, and you know, from there, all these people are going to see your future work, you know?
Yeah. And at the same time though, like I've always preferred to illustrate other people's writing and ideas and stuff. Like, I'm not like an idea guy when it comes to like writing and story and stuff like that. Like, but you know, I can picture it. And you know, why would I try and come up with some story when Edgar Allan Poe, one of the greatest Gothic authors, like, why not just do his? And I'd like to think that he would like the puzzle. So it's kind of honoring their work, you know? So yeah, I think that it would be kind of a later thing that maybe I'd just do a small run of, but you know, we'll see. Like I said, I'm going to try and get 5 public domain puzzles under my belt first, and then we'll see. We'll see if the world's still inhabitable by then, and we still have a supply chain. So
yeah. I mean, you have zombie puzzle you got to do.
You know what? I don't even have that on the list, but that
you better get that on the list.
Zombies? You
better get that on the list. That's huge.
It was actually funny because we were watching TV last night and an ad came on for Walking Dead.
Do it.
And my girlfriend literally goes, "The Walking Dead's still on television?" I'm like,
what I said too.
I guess so.
I literally said the same thing to Leslie 2 days ago. I saw an ad, and I'm like, "That's really on TV?" But
like still, I'm shocked that they haven't. Like, I think they're going to like season 10 at this point or something like that.
They're doing,
Really, they've run out of scenarios by now.
I mean, how many? They're on season 11.
Yeah, it's the ending season though, supposedly.
Like how much running from zombies can there be? I don't know. Like, it's a lot.
And this is probably going to sound weird considering the type of work I do, but when I first saw that, I watched the first season, like there was like too much gratuitous violence for me.
That's you know what though? That is funny, especially because it seems like you do lean towards the whole true crime side of things. Like,
I'll draw it. Like, I'll draw like guts and all kinds of stuff, but I don't need to see someone like causing it, you know?
Yeah, I'm all about like, I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want to be a forensic photographer. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Go out there to Scully and Mulder and get their snaps.
My friend was like, I don't think they pay that much. And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Maybe $5 an hour. That'd be a dope job.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it would be a dope job, but whatever.
Dude, I can't even that's not I don't mind it if there's a story behind it, but again, like like the gratuitous violence or the gratuitous like gore for me, not my jam. I must when
I was a kid, but the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, that stuff actually does happen. So
yeah. See, that's why I'm a big fan of, like, as much as I'm not I don't dive down the horror movie area too much. I prefer like the psychological stuff versus the just like let me chop you with an axe kind of stuff. I'm like, all right, that's just like
stupid. That's stupid. I don't like that stuff either.
But yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And so getting into that a little bit, you said originally you only had, you wanted to create 5 puzzles. Has that kind of evolved throughout? Have you really decided that like puzzles are going to be your thing going forward? Or is it really a matter of like, do you find yourself getting kind of, I don't want to say bored with puzzles, but do you find yourself kind of getting into a little bit too much of a routine with puzzles?
Well, and that's something that, like I said, I like to keep it flexible. So it's not like any of my goals are set in stone. It's just kind of like an armature to work towards things. And if things veer off course, that's fine. Because like this business is like all I'm doing. Like, so I definitely want to go with I don't ever want to feel like I'm forced to do something. And honestly, these big pictures are pretty physically exhausting too. Because like, my hand joints, like after the way that I draw, and I was talking to my mentor about this, David McCauley, amazing illustrator. He was like, why are you holding your pen like that? I just like grip it so hard. And then when I'm drawing these tiny details, after several hours, I'll have like pain and have to be wearing splints and stuff. Like,
oh, damn.
So after, and it's really just during that phase, the inking phase, like all the other stuff, I'm a little easier on it. But when I get into that nitty gritty, it can be pretty painful. And so like, I think I want to just take a break from that particular style of drawing and that massive project. Before I dive into another one of those, I'm going to take the break, do the deck of cards, hopefully. Also, this guy recently hired me to draw Aristotle's Virtues and Vices. And if you had told 20-something college Holly that was going to be a job I'd be paid to do, I would be like, oh my God, it's amazing. But so that'll be a weird one and definitely a challenge. So I will take a break. And actually, I've been using pen and ink for years now. These are all drawn in pen and ink. And I actually think I'm going to go back to my first love, which is pencil, for this card deck. I'm not sure yet, but I think that'll be a nice change of pace. And, because it's a totally different style of drawing. So it'd be nice to see if I've improved or if I'm like out of practice and I can't draw like that anymore. So it'll be interesting to see if my pencil drawing ability has been affected by my pen drawing. But yeah, I'm not totally sure. Like I said, this card deck will probably take me well into next spring, and then this Aristotle thing. I mean, I'll do some
Jackson said he has to get you a Cintiq.
Yeah, you gotta get you a Cintiq.
Yeah, I've seen the Cintiqs, and for the inking, like I do the digital color and stuff, and I use a tablet for that. I got an iPad Pro, and I tried to start doing that, but like I just hate it. And I know I just need to put more time into it to get used to it, because when I switched to a tablet years ago, like I had to get used to it. Right. But I just, and so like I just love so much the actual pen and paper. And I know there's so many products that like replicate the texture of the pencil dragging along the surface, but like I don't know, there's something different about this, you know. And so
step into the future, Holly.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, and there are some jobs that I need to get done so fast, or they need to be vector or something like that, that I do a lot of digital work. But for my own stuff like this, or for people that can afford to pay me the time to do it, like I would way rather do pen and ink. But it's definitely a marriage between the two, because, you know, I'll clean up the lines a little bit, and like I said, color and Photoshop, because I never really delved into color when I was learning to draw and stuff, because I always was like, I'm gonna master drawing and then do color. But there's no such thing as mastering drawing, so I just never got to it. So Photoshop is where all that happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, you want to just get it. I mean, obviously, I don't want to make this the Jackson show, but like, you, if you want to get a really good glimpse into the live illustration, Jackson does a live show every morning where he draws.
Every morning, wow!
Yeah, every morning at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Wow, so, they always say that is the best practice for illustrators and artists, is to draw every day, even for 15 minutes, and so that is super admirable.
I mean, he'll do 3 hours every morning.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, you know, it's really cool to just dive in and watch him and see and interact. You know, he doesn't really talk much because, I mean, he doesn't interact much because he's drawing.
Busy.
But I mean, yeah, it'd be cool to watch him. You know,
yeah,
I'd love to watch him, but he does it at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, I'll have to watch the recording. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Catch the recordings too. I'm not there for 5 a.m.
It's 2 a.m. my time, so I'm definitely not there.
Well, I have noticed a lot of people really find that relaxing. Like when I do post time lapse, or when I've gone on the Reddit RPAM live stream a couple times, and Insta Story live stream, and you know, people really enjoy seeing it. And I love watching other people live draw too. It is relaxing, and I don't know.
I mean, look at Bob Ross. How did that guy get popular?
I know, yeah, right?
People watch him. That's basically, he invented the whole live stream, right?
Yeah, and his big hair helps too.
Yeah, right? So I think, you know, one thing Jackson says is it keeps him motivated. You know, he gets a lot of work done because, you know, people look forward to that drawing in the morning. So he's like,
yeah, if you tell someone that you're going to be there and you're going to be doing this thing and they're depending on you, like, you don't have a choice. Yeah. So that's definitely a great motivating factor for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. So now, how you said earlier that you have like everything all in your one space. You know,
so my house is kind of like a house studio hybrid, because like, you know, I can't just sit in the same place. Like I've got different areas in the house that are for different types of work. So like if I'm working by hand, I work on this drafting table here. And then this is my workstation for when I like am printing order labels and stuff. And do you want to see the rest?
Yeah, give us a little tour.
So this is where I keep a run of each of my puzzles, so that when people lose a piece, I can go ahead and send out a replacement piece for them. And that is something that puzzle enthusiasts love. Nice.
Like if a dog eats a piece of puzzle, eats a puzzle piece.
And they have to send me a picture of the dog, but it's usually a deal that everyone's cool with.
Nice.
I operate on like a lot of like lists and calendars and stuff. It's all very analog. Like I have notes all over the place. And then out here, there's There's my boyfriend, Nick.
Hi, boyfriend, Nick.
So there's all my like packing supplies and stuff. And usually those boxes are stacked with wrapped orders so that I don't have to do it like every day or whatever. And I usually ship orders like twice a week. I work on the couch in here when I get to do some like nice relaxing drawing. And then in my garage in here, this is where I keep some of my puzzles. I also have a storage unit where the rest of them are kept, but I keep some in here so that I can, and there's where I used to pack orders. But
nice.
So the whole place offers like, and I've got a little place outside where I've got some bird feeders so I can like watch the birds and sit outside and work too. So it's important for me to have a lot of different spaces that I can move to so it doesn't feel like I'm just in the same place all the time.
Yeah.
But so I think that it's been really important to my success to have a space that allows me to organize things the way that I want and to have like, I can't do calendars and stuff in the phone and stuff. I'll just never look at it. So I need like massive walls that tell me what to do every day because I have like a very complicated series of nested lists of how I organize my life. And that's just been the only way to keep track of everything. But I enjoy it too. Like it's fun. And I know that that's kind of probably an unusual skill set is the art stuff and the organization and stuff, but it's definitely been helpful for sure.
Does boyfriend Nick get a little bummed out that he has to like kind of step over all these boxes and everything?
No, he's actually really cool about it. And I had when I sold out of puzzles during COVID, I kept running a pre-sale. By the way, a tip for everyone who sells stuff online, just run a pre-sale if you're out, as long as you make sure you're going to get them at some point because you just keep selling stuff. So I had like over 1,000 orders to ship out when they came in. Wow. And I did hire a friend to help me pack orders and stuff, but Nick was invaluable in helping like move all because I had 5,000 that came in. I had to move all those boxes and stuff. And then he helped me pack some puzzles and stuff. So he's very supportive in it. And
that's the boyfriend. That's his job.
Well, he has his own job. So
yeah, no, I know.
He has a very stressful job.
It doesn't matter how many real jobs he has. That's his job.
No, he's always eager to help if I ever need support. So that's really nice.
That's cool. We like Nick.
We love Nick. He's great.
Dude, I can only imagine too. Now, is he in a creative space as well? Does he kind of understand it, or is it a little bit of a mystery to him? And sometimes you just kind of have to explain, like, oh, well, this is just how creative works.
Well, it's interesting because we're both very different when it comes to our backgrounds. He's a literature professor and a writer.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and he does stand-up comedy too, but he definitely works in like systems and stuff. He's also very organized, but he definitely thinks more pragmatically and not as much visually. I, on the other hand, can barely read, but I can, work visually and stuff. And so it's been interesting to compare our different ways of thinking and stuff. And he's helped me see things from a different perspective, understand anything about poetry, that kind of stuff. And then he's also been interesting in learning about like the actual technical process of what I do and like, the layers in Photoshop and all these different stages it goes through. Because, there's parallels in what we do. They're just very different in the way they look. So that's been really cool. And it's always nice to just like explain to anyone this stuff because, I don't have anyone who really wants to hear about it. So it's nice when he's like, can you tell me about this thing? Of course I can. I can talk to you for an hour about it. But yeah, it's really cool to be. Sorry, I think I have something ringing here.
No worries.
Okay, turned it off.
Ringing is good. That means you're busy.
You know what? There's no greater feeling than waking up to no emails and calls. Like that's my favorite thing in the world.
Until the fear sets in. Yeah, until the fear sets in.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, nobody texted me. And no emails. Tyler used to like send me a message because he's on the East Coast still, and I'm in California. And I don't wake up until I wake up. Like my phone's not going to wake me up. So like usually every morning I'll wake up and there'll be a message from Tyler that'll come in at like 6 a.m.
Oh, that's sweet. He's like, "Did you sleep well?"
Usually it's like, "Hey, did you forget to do this?"
No. Well,
like,
actually, it's funny you should mention that, because one interesting thing that happened to me while I was working on Dracula, and I didn't think about the coincidence of it until after the fact, but I went totally nocturnal over the course of this project. And the main reason for that is because of COVID. I wanted to start going back to the gym, like when things cooled down, but I still didn't want to go like during peak hours. And so I started going at like 2:30 in the morning, because it's 24 hours and there was just like me and a couple other ladies there. And so I had started doing that, but I had to shift my work schedule around it. And so I started working into the night until about 2 a.m. and going to the gym, and then I'll go to bed at like 6 a.m. and sleep through the day. And I found that is like such a perfect schedule for me. For whatever reason, I just gravitated towards it. But I'm wondering if like the power of vampires like coming.
That's actually the creative hours. You know, that's where all the creatives do their best work, because they're not getting phone calls, they're not getting emails, nobody is reaching out to them, so they're just able to just sit and work without any interruptions. You know, and that's why a lot of creative people, whether it's Luke or like, you know, random people who are in that creative space, are always up late at night.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's different between Nick and I's practice, is he is most productive in the morning. Like in the morning, that's when I do, like, I go to the grocery store, I take the trash, I do all like the stuff, pack orders, like shallow work, right? And I don't know if you've read the book Deep Work, I forget the guy's name, but he talks about shallow work versus deep work. And so I have those shallow work tasks, or like dealing with the financial spreadsheets and all that stuff that doesn't require like all of myself. But then the deep work I'll want to do later in the day, when I've gotten all the other junk done and all I have to do is focus on this thing. And then I love going to the gym at the end of the day, because that's kind of like, I can't like meditate, but like that's kind of like my brain is off and doing something else time that I can wind down for the end of the day. But focus is a really tough one for me. Like especially since finishing Dracula and just being kind of like all over the place, not knowing what to do. The phone is just like a nightmare curse. And I do better with it sometimes rather than others, depending on how much intense work I have to do. But I definitely feel that over the years, I've lost my ability to focus a little bit more. And like, I feel a little bit dumber, but I don't know.
That means you're getting older.
Google, or that's just me.
That just means you're getting older.
Yeah, I think so too. But I can blame the internet, right? Give me that.
Yeah, of course. If you have TikTok, you can blame TikTok.
Yeah, I do have TikTok, but I don't.
You know what my TikTok account is? Tyler. Tyler's my TikTok account.
I try to get Steve on board with the idea of short form content, but he's not a fan. So
I tried it. I did post some while I was doing the sketching stuff. I posted some little, quick time lapse drawings, which I like to do. But like, honestly, the social media stuff, what I decided ages ago was I'm just going to pick one and do the best, which is probably not great, because, if that goes down, then you should probably sow your seeds a little better. But, I'm kind of have a business Facebook account, but I hate going on Facebook. It's just awful.
Yeah.
And I don't have it. I do have a Twitter, but I never used it, because whenever I've talked to people, they're like, my biggest time suck is Twitter. So I'm like, I'm just not even going to go there. So Instagram is what I focus on. It's perfect for illustrators. Like, it's literally just pictures. I know it's kind of moving towards a video thing, but like I said, I'm starting to figure out how to do that. So yeah, like, let's keep Instagram alive, because that's where all my eggs are.
Yeah, Instagram's not going anywhere anytime soon. That's for sure.
I don't know how much growth opportunity it has these days, though. It's interesting to see. Like, it's still a focused platform, but it's not as, it's more established now. It's going the same route as Facebook. So
yeah, and so I'm kind of like learning a little bit here and there, but and also like listening to other illustration business podcasts and stuff like that to get those best practices. But like, I don't have to be on the cutting edge. Like, I'll just wait until someone else figures it out and then tells me, you should be doing this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so for you on the creative side, going a little bit back to your Kickstarter experience with all of this, how was that first experience for you? Really kind of stepping into a Kickstarter space, and obviously, like you said, not really having a support structure in place initially. Did you find your first Kickstarter to be fun, a headache, exciting? How'd that kind of all go?
It was terrifying. I was so and I have high functioning anxiety.
Okay.
And so I think that that's another thing that's helped the business is just me constantly catastrophizing everything and just preparing for the worst case scenario. But the Kickstarter, and I didn't have to worry long because it hit within 24 hours and it did great. But I was talking to my friend Sam, who's an excellent illustrator, Sam Flegel, and he had done some Kickstarters before, and he was like, "What's the worst that could happen? Massive embarrassment on the internet." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that wouldn't be that bad. Who cares?" So I just quit worrying about it and posted it. But yeah, I'm glad that the first one went well. I'm sure it would have really bummed me out and discouraged me if I had failed that first one. I like to think I would have come back and tried again, but who knows? I might have just doomed myself to a life of children's books or something like that. I don't know.
It's interesting.
It was definitely lucky. It was lucky. Yeah. It was a good, right place, right time. And, I had a shout out on Last Podcast on the Left and on My Favorite Murder when they were first kind of
cool.
gaining steam. So that really helped.
Nice.
And that's impossible to get now because so many people send stuff to them, but that was really helpful. And then Reddit, because I've been on Reddit for 13 years. I'm, I understand how Reddit works, and it's a very sensitive bunch, and each subreddit has their own little sensitivities. And so it definitely helps to be able to navigate that and to have a long-term trusted account. And, they're supporting a Redditor and not some asshole who comes in who wants to talk about Rampart. So it's just, it's definitely, there's been a lot of luck involved. But yeah, I was definitely scared that first time for sure. But I'm stressed out with everyone, but each time it gets less stressful. I'm not stressed at all about this next one. It is different because I'm getting 10,000 puzzles this time, which is more than I've ever got at once. So there's some logistical anxiety there. But again, I've done it once before and it was fine. So, barring some massive catastrophe, which don't worry, I've already imagined it. Everything's fine. Yeah, last night I was imagining the puzzle factory burning down. So.
Oh, jeez.
Well, you know what? I'm sure you've got a contingency plan in place for it now, so that's good at least. Yeah, you prep for it all, and that's one of the biggest things I think about Kickstarter though too is thank you, Mark. We appreciate the support, man.
Thank you so much,
Mark.
Yeah, if you think about it, there's so many parts of Kickstarter where things can go wrong, and it's funny because built into the campaign there's this whole risks and challenges section. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you see a risks and challenges that says, "I've thought of everything, don't worry." And then you see some that say, "If this or this goes wrong, don't worry because I have this plan in place and I've thought about all the things." And I think at a bare minimum almost now, with the fact that we're in a global pandemic, everyone's risk and challenge should say something about COVID. We are anticipating some shipping delays due to COVID. That line right there should probably be in every single Kickstarter risks and challenges. But the amount that don't even mention the fact that there's shipping delays across the board right now, or that there's always going to be things that don't go right, blows my mind.
Yeah, and puzzles are relatively straightforward compared to a lot of things on Kickstarter, especially when there's electronic gadgets and stuff like that and things that they don't even know if they can work yet. And ones where some other company remakes it, but a crappy version before it comes out and totally destroys it. Puzzles are pretty straightforward, I mean, just do the picture. And one thing that makes it's almost a superpower to be able to do the art as well, because I feel like one of the biggest costs in a board game or puzzle or anything is the art. And so the fact that I can do that makes it so much easier for me to produce because I don't have to have that capital up front. Yeah. And so the Kickstarter, I didn't need the upfront capital from Kickstarter for this one because I used the profit from the last one and rolled it over. But to start out, that first one was really helpful. And this at this point, Kickstarter is more of like a pre-sale. But yeah, it's been, I forgot the question, but yeah.
What was the question? Now I forgot it too. Jeez.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I think it had to do with the fact that, like, your first time around with Kickstarter and like, oh no, we were talking about risks and challenges. That's what it was. Is the fact that there's always risks and challenges, and people, you know, seem to gloss over it. And it's funny because I wonder how much of that's intentional versus just not being knowledgeable in it. Where I think you can see like I don't want to say even an experienced creator, but someone who's done a campaign once or put some thought into it is going to realize that there's always things that can go wrong. Like you said, no matter how simple puzzles are, there's still things that can go wrong. And 9 times out of 10, they're outside of the scope of the project itself. They're world related. They're out of the creator's hands. I mean, that's just kind of how things go. We see it even with production side of things. You could, thankfully with puzzles, like if they printed it upside down, you just turn the puzzle over. But if they printed somehow miraculously were able to print half of it backwards, and so all the pieces didn't fit right, like that's out of your hands and it's not necessarily feasible. But there's always things like that that can happen. And a lot of times you have creators who come to it and they're like, I have everything planned, this is gonna be awesome, and then they hit all these snags. And that, I think, ultimately, like, you're better off communicating and preparing for those long-term potential issues that may or may not arise than ignoring them and have people then be like, well, why didn't you think about that?
Absolutely. It's all about communication. And last year when it was a nightmare and the puzzles weren't going to make it right in time for Christmas, I just individually wrote everybody and explained the situation. Everyone was super cool about it. One new delay, which will be affecting online sellers this year, is the new VAT rules in Europe. That has been a pain in the ass. And thankfully, Etsy has got an IOSS number, which is basically a number that you need. It's a big racket. They're going to make a bunch of money off of this. But, like, it's a whole thing. I've researched it and figured it out. But luckily, Etsy, selling through there, kind of dodges some of the issues. But it's going to be a matter of, like, redirecting my website traffic to Etsy to buy that. And I do have some UK and EU customers who've backed the Kickstarter, and I'm trying to figure out how I can get those shipped with an IOSS number so that they're not delivered duty not declared.
Secret?
Duty upon delivery is what it is.
So a little secret on that. So there's two ways you can go around it. One, you can use a fulfillment, This
is not legal advice.
100% legal. Oh no, that's not legal advice.
100% not legal advice from Steve.
Right, but this is like legal. So if you have a fulfillment partner, right, they don't have to basically claim how much it costs or use VAT because they're just shipping. You're not purchasing it from them. So the customer, you don't have to worry about VAT for that. Or you could just send it as a private party rather than from your shop. So that's a way around it. For my shop, I don't even ship to the EU anymore because I don't even want the hassle.
Really?
Well, to the UK at least, you ship to the EU as a whole, but
the
UK
UK,
because of the new stuff. And the concern you do have there, though, Holly, about the fact that, like, you could get hit with duty on it. If you do it as a private thing, you have like a 50-50 shot that someone gets stuck with duty on the back end. But it's interesting to see, though, like, so you consider duty into the price and everything, or do you let backers know, hey, this is on you?
Well, that's what's changing. Is until now, the value has been low enough that they just pay it upon delivery. And people ordering from America, like, have usually done it before and they're prepared for that. It's just kind of, part of it. But now they're requiring that it be paid up front. And really the only thing is, like, having being registered with each of the European Union countries to do that. But, like, they're all individual. You have to speak German and Belgian laws. So they want you to register with an IOSS intermediary, which is too expensive to justify. I do have lots of international orders, but not enough to justify that. So, but it's one of those things that, like, if I can deal with those people individually and just get them to go through Etsy, it's a non-issue. So, but that's definitely been a hot topic on Reddit lately amongst, like, the Etsy sellers and stuff like that. It's been a bit of a headache, but yeah.
That's a shame too. Like, I mean, I get why, like, obviously these countries want to make sure they're not missing out on taxes, but it seems like they're making it so so prohibitive for creators and for suppliers and shops and all this, because now you have to worry about one extra step that's adding significant overhead to your business. So.
Well, I think that eventually, because I use Squarespace as my platform to sell on my website, I think that all these different, because I think Etsy and Shopify already have it on there. And I think the other ones just weren't prepared for it, and they will eventually add it on, so it won't be an issue. But yeah, at this point, it is pushing out a lot of small companies like mine, like teeny tiny sellers, who just like, it's just not practical to register with an IOSS. But you know, if things keep going as they do, and I've had a lot of customers from the EU and Australia request this, because those are like the international countries I ship most to, asking that I, you know, partner with a fulfillment company in those countries, which I definitely want to inquire about for the next one. It's too late now because they're almost done. They're going to ship probably within the next 2 weeks. But next time I'll probably explore that option, just because I do have a surprising amount of international customers, and I don't want them to have to pay an extra $25 to ship the puzzle. It's crazy. It's almost as much as the puzzle.
Yeah. No, you could definitely find fulfillment center in those areas. Sure.
There's actually, there are a lot. I mean, even in the playing card world, like there's specific playing card fulfillment, but I know going through Kickstarter, through all of the spam you get being a creator on Kickstarter, every time you launch a campaign, there are actually some that come out of it that are not just spam, and a lot of those are actually fulfillment related. And so I'm shocked at how many companies in China and a lot of these production heavy companies focus solely on the fulfillment side of things as well, to kind of like ease the burden. I didn't look too much into what the fees and everything looks like, but there is a lot of opportunity out there to find like fulfillment partners that hopefully don't cause too much headache. So
yeah, that has been a little frustrating, because like, you know, the amount of orders I'm shipping out now is not overwhelming. Like, you know, I'll do it twice a week, and I'll just, you know, put on a TV show and pack my orders and stuff. And then I got a little van and I take it to the post office. So the whole process is kind of fun. But, you know, I was like, this order, I was like, should I get a warehouse and warehouse them instead of using a storage unit? Should I hire a third-party fulfillment service? And so I looked into all those options, and I'm like right on the cusp of selling enough for it to be worth it, but it's still like not quite feasible. It's feasible, but it just wouldn't be worth the hassle. So I think by the next time around, if by the next time I'm ordering 20,000 units, I would probably do it then. But now it's just like, it's actually at a comfortable level, and this probably seems crazy, but I'd kind of like the business to stay like right where it is. You know?
Yeah, because you're kind of, it sounds like you're on a shifting point where it might end up being where you need to hire people in to help facilitate if you get much bigger.
And then I'm switching from being an illustrator to being I'm a business owner, but like I don't really want to mess with that.
There's an admin side to it.
Yeah, I want to keep as few hands in the pot as possible, because like, it's not that I don't trust people, but it's hard to rely on other people, because I already rely so much on the manufacturer, and I've had a lot of issues with manufacturers over the years. I've been through a few. My current manufacturer is amazing, but you had talked about potential problems. I had this one manufacturer. They had sent me this huge shipment. I think it was like 2,500 units. All of them were printed like super dark. And I was like, did I sign off on the dark proof? So I had the proof back to me. The proof was fine. So they had just messed up, and I was like, you're gonna have to send these back and do it again. So they did. The color was fine, but the cut was all scruffy. Like they had cut it with like a blunt die. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I can't sell this. You know, it's especially because my puzzles are kind of on the higher end as far as the price point and the quality. Like that's super important to me.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is bananas. What are you doing? And so I made them send them back again, and I made them do them again. This time they made me pay an extra 50 cents per unit to use the good die cutter. I was like, you're like trying to get me to go away because I'm annoying. So that's when I found another manufacturer. But like, it is hard. And I get emails from creators all the time. Like, is there a manufacturer who is consistent and good? Because like, you know, they had sent me a great run in the past, but it was a crapshoot. And every time an order would come in, I'd be terrified it wouldn't be right. So this current manufacturer I had, like I said, they're fantastic, and I totally trust them. You know.
Yeah, it's really, really tough dealing with manufacturers in general, but especially ones that are in different countries. They're in different time zones, they're in different countries. You can't like go there and check it out. It's not like their local t-shirt printing company down the street that you can go check out and be like, no, that's clearly not what I wanted, but
this is the first company I've worked with overseas. The last couple of manufacturers, the first one I had was this adorable little paper box company in Buffalo. They just happened to have a puzzle press, and so I got them to do it, but they unfortunately shut down a year later. And then I tried a couple of other US companies, but I was just having an issue finding, and I was paying like 2 or 3 times as much as I currently am for a crappier product. It was still good. I mean, it was good quality, but only when they got it right. You know what I mean? So I've had samples from all over the world, all different manufacturers. But this company in the Netherlands, NSF Games, they're fantastic. I love them. And also they have this really cute YouTube video showing you the factory with this cartoon llama. And that was really endeared me to them. So
that's so cool. That's funny.
It's
I
so
mean,
funny.
There's always these like fees that pop up, they want to use a magnesium or brass plate, and they have to use a different stock now, and their foil machine broke and they have to get a new one. There's just so many different things that come up, and all of a sudden it's like now we're dealing with something in the past, let's say year, shipping might have been $800, but now it's double. So now you have to just take that into consideration that, look, you're paying $1,600 for shipping when it was $800 last year. So that totally adds to your cost. It doesn't, you can't charge the customer that extra money, it's just on you.
And there's material shortages too, and that's being rolled into the price. And also just a lot of like if I wanted to start puzzles now, it would have been so much harder because my first run of puzzles was just 500 puzzles. Now you're going to have a hard time finding someone who's going to do less than 2,000 minimum on a run. And, that just would be too much for me back then. And so that's one roadblock for people just starting out in it. But there are a lot of different factors. And so like, because of that, I just prefer to keep it as minimal as possible as far as the people I have to rely on. But when I have the order come in and it's, moving boxes and packing orders and stuff like this, it's definitely helpful to, hire a couple of friends, $20 an hour, come and hang out, we'll eat pizza and watch Netflix and pack orders. And it's a fun time.
And that's one of definitely the great parts about having control over the whole pipeline there. It makes a lot of sense. So, and so being an illustrator, and obviously we're talking a lot about your Kickstarter stuff, and for anyone who hasn't checked it out yet, definitely make sure to check out Holly's currently active Kickstarter. The link is in the description below. And
I just backed it.
And it's pinned on the chat as well. But so what outside of illustration do you do? I find, we talked a little bit earlier about the fact that working from home, sometimes it's tough to separate yourself from it. What do you do outside of illustration, outside of the puzzle making, that keeps you occupied and having a good time?
Well, I definitely, even though my business and my life is very much entangled, I do make sure to keep a healthy work-life balance. Sleep is my number one because I have like this hierarchy of needs, right? And whenever I have to go into like major work mode and it's like an emergency, I'll knock certain things down, like social stuff, cooking healthy food, like all this stuff. But sleep is always the last thing I'll give up because that is like my number one. So love sleeping. I make sure to spend plenty of time with my boyfriend and my friends and my family when I can. I mean, of course, COVID kind of messed that up, but we were quarantined together, so that was nice. We'll like go running together. We're both very active. I love going to the gym. That's kind of like my me time. I also get a lot of ideas while I'm driving there, and while I'm there, just doing my thing. So that's really helpful. But yeah, just being outside, like going into the woods. I have this big woods and swamp, like walking distance from my house. So I spend a lot of time there. I think that it's Not to be woo-woo, but I think that it's really important to be in nature sometimes and just be amongst the trees and stuff. And yeah, I'm very lucky to have that right there. Like if I had to drive to get to that, it would be such a bummer. So that's really important. And you know, the other day I was walking through the woods and I was like, why do I have my headphones and my phone with me? And I took it off and I was just like, oh my God, I just felt like a breath of fresh air. So having that time to rejuvenate and just remind myself that I don't have to have constant noise and constant screens. That's really important to me too. But yeah, the main stuff. Oh, and like I said, Nick does comedy, so we go to a lot of comedy shows. You know, when I have free time, I'll do like comedy show posters for some of the local comedians. So that's a fun hobby to go and watch the comedy. I like that. Although I've been spending too much time on comedy stuff lately, so I need to cut myself off of it.
And you're 100% right though. Like getting out there in nature and trying to. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, Mark's on a roll.
Mark loves his super stickers. Have a nice afternoon, Mark. Thanks for stopping in, man.
Thanks, buddy.
But yeah, so it's interesting to see though too, because like you said, you know, you're walking through the woods and you realize like, why do I have my phone and my headphones on? Like, it's so easy in this day and age with screens everywhere in front of us. I mean, you look at new cars now have tablets in them. Like we're building this whole kind of like construct where we are always in front of screens. Like having that like that way to get away from it. Not only is just great for your mental health, but like just the physical strain on your body. Like I know I can only imagine being an illustrator, how much, you know, your eyes get tired from staring at screens all day. And like the more we get into that, staring at the phone, staring at the screens, the more we just wear ourselves down. I mean, I don't know how often, if you're ever like watching television and you're on your phone and you're super focused on your phone for a while, and then you look up at the television, which is farther away, it's actually tough to focus on parts of it because your eyes have strained so much looking at the screen that you're just like, they don't know how to adjust. It's crazy to think how much just getting out and walking and breathing some fresh air and getting away from technology can help these days.
Yeah. And I need to do it more often. Like, you know, and I'll definitely go through phases. Like I said, I have that armature, that structure of the ideal balance of everything. And, you know, I don't like beat myself up if I don't stick to stuff, but I'm usually pretty good about it. And having those goals really helps. So like, you know, saying I'm going to go out at least every other day and just wander in the woods or whatever. But yeah, my eyes are a concern. Like, you know, doing these teeny tiny details over the years, I notice it's getting harder. And I feel my eyes like going out of focus sometimes. I'm going to have to get one of those big ass looking glasses. What are they called?
Magnifying glasses.
Magnifying glass.
you can get like the reader glasses where the lower half is a magnifier and the upper half is your regular prescription.
I can wear a visor and I can pretend I'm looking at diamonds.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
About the screen thing. Like the screen thing's crazy. Like I have in front of me 1, 2, 3, 4 screens, and all of them have the internet, my texts, my emails. Like I will, and you know, I use different systems for different things, and I'll switch from one to the other, and it follows me, you know. And it's convenient, but it's like being haunted, and it's so fun. I don't have to be bored. I can just scroll stuff. I can just text people. I'm texting people all the time, so like that's one thing that, you know, if I really focus. And it's happened maybe like 2 or 3 days in the last year that I've actually successfully done this, but just put my phone in the filing cabinet and leave it and just work. It feels so good. Like the end of the day, like when I've done the amount of work that I would typically in my distracted state do over the course of an entire week. And it just feels like, you know, it just feels like I've done a hard workout and I've just drawn this picture and I've like, you know, feel like clear of mind, but it is a vicious addiction. It really is. And I do a pretty good job of getting my work done and stuff, but I definitely need to work on it.
Yeah, they have these little like jaws that you could put your phone in, put your like controller in from Xbox or PS5 or
and they're like time locked and everything.
And it's time locked. You can't open it until like whenever that time goes off, that's when you can open it. You know,
well, that's the thing though, is it's not just my phone, it's like everything. So I have to like turn off the internet.
Yeah.
which is really lonely.
They actually have apps that do the same thing.
Your router will, like a lot of routers now actually have that built in where you can set non-internet times for your entire household. But the problem with the phone is even if your Wi-Fi is out, you still have data connection. So it's like you just it's like the levels we go to make sure we're always connected is crazy.
It is. It really is, and it feels weird to be disconnected from it. And I think that it's just, if I don't engage with it, if I don't post stuff, I don't think about it because I don't care about other people's stuff. I'm just posting my stuff, you know. And but you know, it's kind of, I can't really get around it with the Kickstarter, so I have to kind of be monitoring it and stuff. But you know, after this week, me and a friend of mine, we're gonna take the week off and we're just gonna hang out and take her dogs on a road trip. And it'll be nice to get out of the internet for a while, and then after it, I'll be diving into another big project. So that's definitely gonna be a goal of mine, is to like really structure, because I don't like post on social media for work that much that it should be taking up as much time as it does. So if I can figure out a way to structure when I post and stuff like that, so that I can get better with regaining my focus. Because I could be getting way more done, and I know that every single one of you out there knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, you can use something like Hootsuite, which you can set up your literally calendar to post for you a month in advance, 2 months in advance, whatever. You can literally just put it in there and it'll post it whenever.
That would be great if I just do it once a month, put all my stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, doing it once a month will probably take you 6 hours to set up, but you set it up and it's done for as long as you set it up for, and you don't have to worry about it unless you want to just do on the fly stuff. Yeah,
it's crazy. Good. It's really crazy to see, like, again, like I think there's so much convenience with technology. Again, you know, you have you have the things you're willing to trade, privacy for convenience, things along those lines. Like Steve said, you can automate all this Hootsuite stuff, but at the end of the day, like, it's also okay to just realize, like, I'm not going to get a ton of stuff done. I think we've built this kind of idea that in order to be successful in life, you need to be busy 100% of the time. And in reality, like, I think people as a whole need to start realizing that making the conscious decision to do nothing is okay.
Oh, absolutely. And I completely believe in that. And I think that, and what I have to do is kind of schedule that time, because if I don't, I feel guilty and I can't enjoy the time off. You know what I mean? And so if I can, you know, like I do that, like I make sure that the weekends we spend together don't work unless there's an emergency and one of us has a project or something, but we just spend that time together intentionally, watch garbage on TV, go on dates, whatever. And so that's a really nice way to break it up. And then during the week, we kind of just go and do our respective work. And then, so that really helps. But yeah, I definitely think that if I spend too much time on just working, my work's going to get worse and worse. Like I need to rejuvenate. And so yeah, it does, you've got to put the elbow grease in, but you definitely have to make sure that there's a balance. Absolutely.
Yes. Dude, 100%. I mean, you look at like company CEOs and people who, you know, we all think of as like very time crunched. Even they're out there taking vacation, maybe not as much, but they're all realizing that they need to take vacation. They're very like thoughtful about their relaxation as well. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them are into things that are more like, you know, yoga and meditation and things like that, where they're purposefully relaxing themselves in order to be able to continue operating at a high functioning pace, because it's draining. It's tough. So.
Yeah. And, you know, like also just a quality of life thing. Like I love drawing, but I want to keep it fun. Like if I get to the point where it's just a chore every day and I'm not getting to experience life the way I want to, then what's the point, you know? So, you know, I definitely want to make sure I don't ruin it by, you know, overdoing it. And, you know, yeah, I'm pretty chill. I like to hang out.
This is nothing wrong with that.
You definitely can't overload other, you know, it's funny because, you know, being a photographer, you know, this day and age with socials and all this stuff, and, you know, you kind of have to carry a phone or / camera around with you. And it's like, I never I never take pictures. Like I go on vacation, I don't even bring my camera.
Mm.
I literally went to Thailand for 2 weeks. Didn't even take. I took like pictures on my phone, and that's
Yeah.
it. Like barely took like any pictures because you can either do one or the other when
Mhm.
you're going somewhere on vacation or what, depending on what your expertise is or skill is or whatever. It's like if you go on vacation or if you go to a concert or whatever, you can do two things. You can be the photographer or you can enjoy the freaking show.
Yeah, you can't
There's
just
not both.
always be like looking for compositions and stuff, and then
Yep.
like Megadeth's up there and you're missing it.
Dude, you got to live in the moments, and that's what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny though too, because on the opposite side, you see people who are non-photographers. Everyone has a camera in their pocket now, and they take 1,000 pictures. And you're like, so what can you tell me that you enjoyed most about it? And it's like, oh well, it was really cool. Like, there's no specificity to the experience for them, and that's always a shame because, like, think about how difficult it was, or what it really came down to when you used to take vacations with your family as a kid. Like, you had one camera, you maybe had 2-3 rolls of film. Each of those rolls of film had a finite amount of cameras on it or photos on it. You took what you took. You really were thoughtful about it because you didn't want to have to go buy more rolls of film. And at the end of the day, like, and I'm sure, digital photography has probably enhanced the ability of photographers to have more choice and more capability. But as a recreational photographer or a vacation photographer, you don't need to take a picture of every little thing 10 times. Like,
Yeah.
you see something cool and you're like, let me get 100 pictures of it. And by the time you're done taking picture, the cool thing's done and you actually haven't gotten to experience it and appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm kind of opposite on that though, because like I said before, my memory is just absolutely awful. And really the only things I remember are like the pictures of stuff.
Yep.
And so I always go into these things like, oh, I have to take at least like 2 or 3 pictures just so I remember this ever happened. And I always forget. Like I recently went on a trip and there was like a couple of pictures of my food and that was it. And I was like, am I going to forget this? So that's something I try to remember when I go places. And it is weird because back when I was a teenager, I would get a roll of film developed at Walmart every week. Like I was taking pictures constantly. My friends had a huge box of pictures. And ironically, now that I have this camera, I don't have to go to Walmart. Like, I don't have all these pictures, And I mean, it's fine, like, I guess I'm not, gonna.
Yeah, it's so funny because people are always like, oh, what camera do you have? Do you have the new iPhone 12, like Elemental PX Max? I'm like, they're like, you must have that for the camera, right? I was like, no, I don't even take pictures.
Success, baby.
I don't take pictures with my phone. I could care less.
Yeah.
I get it because I just want, quicker service. Because after a while, obviously the iPhones start to work like crap.
Gotta stick with Android. That's why.
No, that's just always the work.
Oh, are you a green text?
I am, but only because well, it's funny. Like my last iPhone was like an iPhone 4. So I transitioned at the time because I was running out of space on them. And at the time, the biggest iPhone wasn't big enough because I had a ton of like music and stuff on my phone. And this was before like Spotify and all that was obviously big. So like you had to load your music on the phone. And so I switched to Android because it was expandable. And now there's like certain apps that I use for work that due to security things on iPhone, I can't use. And they make life so much more convenient. I'm just like, all right, like if I ever got an iPhone, I'd probably like keep an Android as my primary and have an iPhone just for like personal stuff so people would not get annoyed by the green text.
Well, you know what? I don't judge.
I appreciate that.
I respect the green text, but you're missing out on some gifts that won't go through. So
I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. Yeah, the one thing that does get me is when like iPhone's a little quicker to update their emojis. And so, like, I'll get just like the square box when the emoji doesn't show up. Yeah, those ones. That always kills me. But like, I can also kind of just deal with that because I'm like, all right, like, I'm not getting a ton of emojis in my text. It's fine.
I communicate almost exclusively with emojis. I love emojis, and I want to go back to hieroglyphs and glyphs. Like,
I mean, it makes life somewhat easier, but I think it leads to a lot of confusion sometimes, depending when you get people who are like new to emojis and they don't know like the subtle meanings of certain emojis, and you're like, nah, don't use that one.
Good, it's fun and weird. They got to find out sometime.
Like this one. This one means thank you. This should be please.
It's supposed to be high five.
Yeah, no, this one means thank you.
Yeah.
I think there is. I think there. I don't know. Is it
There
supposed
is
to be
one,
high five?
but it has like those.
That's what
movements.
I heard a rumor on the internet that it was supposed to be a high five, but then it became thank you and prayer. I don't know who to believe.
Yeah, I would believe what it says on there, and it says
Yeah.
thank you.
Although
So-
there was a new emoji for a redhead. It only just came out that we have representation, but she looks mad. So
I mean, that's
I don't
pretty
know how-
accurate. I'm just kidding.
My girlfriend is also a redhead, and she was very excited when redheaded emojis came out.
yeah, it's
And, yeah.
expressionless, unfortunately, but you can just
Well,
add
that's
the
the whole-
ginger.
That's the whole
Lots
lack
of
of soul
characters.
thing, right? You know, they knew there were no
Yeah.
souls, and
That's funny.
no. It's interesting because like I'm actually really glad to see emojis becoming more inclusive though and diverse, because like
Yeah,
not everyone could just be like the random like default yellow emoji color that like is all we had back when you had flip phones and you had like 6 emojis.
hmm
It's crazy to say.
Flip
So looking at technically it's folded hands is the emoji, and it means please or thank you in Japanese culture.
okay. No high five.
But if you type in thank you, it comes up. If you type in please, it doesn't come up.
But
I
so
use it for thank you mostly.
So it can also say though that rarely it can be used as a high five.
yeah,
So yeah, so emojis are so open to interpretation, which I think is wonderful.
Mhm.
But we'll see. We'll see.
It
Who
kind of
knows?
reminds me of. Did you see that movie Arrival with Amy Adams in it, where they're talking to the aliens? Well, they're basically talking with like memes. It's really cool. You should check it out.
Oh, is that in front of that big screen that you?
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they like plaster a meme up there because
Yeah.
it like communicates not just the word, but also like all this other
Emotion, yeah.
context and like, yeah, I think that memes kind of do that in a
That's
weird
funny.
way, in a weird juvenile way.
Oh,
That's
love it.
hilarious.
and so you know, I keep noticing too. You have tattoos on your arms. Being an illustrator, how's the tattoo process been for you? Do you have like artists that you try and go to because of the artwork style, or are you kind of like a I want a tattoo, let's go get it, spontaneous kind of person with it?
Well, this one I got when I was like, as soon as I turned 18, I'm like, I have to get a tattoo right now. And I just went into the first tattoo shop I could find. I didn't even look at their art. I didn't know anything about it. And I didn't know this until later, but it was one of his first tattoos ever.
Oh
He
my
did a
god!
great job. I mean, it's had so many sunburns, you can barely tell what it is anymore, but he's done my tattoos, all of them, since then.
Oh, that's
Wow.
really cool.
Yeah, so I've known him for like 20 years. And he's kind of a grumpy old bastard, but we get along fine.
Dude, those are the fun ones. Tattoo
yeah.
artists are all about the stories, you know, and the personality.
Yeah, no,
He's
cool.
grumpy. He's grumpy
Like-
because he gets a ton of people coming in being like, "Can you put this on me?" That like the same infinity sign that
I'd really love a
everybody gets.
nautical star on my elbow.
Ankle on my
It's Tweety
ankle.
Bird.
No,
but he's pretty cool.
Sorry
Like,
for everybody who has a nautical star or an
Yeah.
infinity sign.
I don't judge. People can get whatever tattoos they
Yeah.
want, you know.
I
So
agree.
yeah,
But yeah, I there was a long stretch of time where I didn't get any tattoos because I didn't have any money.
yeah.
And
It's a tough one with those.
I
yeah.
always wonder like how people have like full body suits by the time they're 30. It's like, where do you get all this money from? But yeah, I got yeah.
They're in the Yakuza,
here.
and so it's a requirement. So.
Yeah. But I'm currently working on this massive leg piece. It's
Nice,
currently,
nice.
I would do it. I take my pants off a lot to show people in bars and stuff. I won't do it on the internet.
You can
I
do
mean,
it as long as
yeah,
it's,
that's
as long as it's past an hour.
I'll show you after. But ironically, it's this Hieronymus Bosch hellscape.
That's
And
really
I
cool.
got it kind of in honor of like the end, the collapse, the global warming, all of that.
Yeah.
And ironically, we've been working on it for like a year. And ironically, we had to stop halfway through because of COVID, because of the pandemic, because of the plague. And I'm
That's
like,
so perfect.
I literally have that illustrated in this. It was almost like a fuck you from God. And like, so hopefully we can pick that back up. But who knows? I mean, it's kind of poetic that we got stopped because of that. But
Yeah. It's so funny. I just got a tattoo like a couple weeks ago, and we were talking to the tattoo artist, and we were just asking him, how's everything been since COVID? And he goes, "We're one of the only professions that were already like COVID preparations was already in our business."
yeah,
Like literally, they didn't change anything because they're so like they wipe everything down. Obviously, the only thing that
Everything's
changed was they
hermetically
wear masks.
sealed. Everything. Yeah.
That's it. Their mask was the only thing that changed for them.
yeah. Well, my tattoo artist won't wear a mask, so I didn't go to him.
Good for
So I
you.
gotta wait.
Good for you.
My gosh, I haven't gotten a tattoo in a while now, and I'm like, all right, like I'm almost like I want to get something, and I think in the spring I'm gonna get like next spring I'll get something again, but I'm like it's gonna be interesting to have the whole experience, especially for multi-session. Like when you have to go in and every time it's like, oh man, like did I get COVID this time? Are there other people in the shop? Like, how's it all going? But
yeah, I'm not gonna mess with it until it's all clear. Like I don't.
Exactly.
It's not that important. You know what I mean? Like I'm fine. I'm busy anyways, and I've got other stuff I can spend that money.
And like yeah, like you said, it's expensive, and it's like so. Like my goal is eventually to have like a full bodysuit, like Yakuza style, below the neck.
Really ambitious.
And but like, and now I've been getting tattoos for like 18 years now, and I've only got a third of my body done, and I'm like, all right, so I've really got to amp it up because I'm realizing as I get older, it seems to hurt more and more. And I'm like, man, I don't want to be 60 getting these things and crying 40 minutes.
Yeah, you're looking all soggy and gross.
Oh my God, it's brutal. Like, and I can't tell if it hurts more or I'm just really good at like blocking out the pain after the fact. Like my body's like, that was a trauma. Let's forget all about it. And then I go in the next time and I'm like, there was no big deal last time. And then it starts up and I'm like, holy shit, like what? So I can't tell.
I can almost fall asleep every time I get a tattoo. I'm so
really.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just like it's a time where nobody's bugging me, and I'm just like.
No, I think you're just a psychopath. That's crazy.
It's funny. I'm just like, oh.
I used to just drink a lot while I was getting tattooed. I just get plastered.
Dude, that's a good way to do it.
I don't do that anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You don't want to get plastered before you get a tattoo because you might end up with like, I don't know, Porky Pig on your arm or something.
Dude, or a long session it gets you. Like, it depends how long you're in the chair too. If you're getting drunk for like an 8-hour session, like,
well, yeah. Well, when working on this, I was in there for like probably like 8 hours of gun time, but like a whole like 15-hour day. We just chill all day. So
that's a lot.
Yeah. It was an event.
I'd get bored. I'd just be like, I'm bored. Like I'd have to play a game or something. Like I'd be bored.
Yeah. Well, I would usually just talk his head off, or like I said, we watched Cheers. We watched a few shows straight.
Cheers.
Oh, we love Cheers.
Oh, God.
I feel like tattoo places should have like TVs in them just because it's something like for me, as weird as it sounds, having lots of tattoos, I get like really big adrenaline surges when I get like shots or tattoos. And so like I'll pass out. So like for the first 20 minutes, I need to like distract myself hardcore. So I read like the news on my phone, which it's horrible. Like I don't need to be doing that. But like if there was a television there where I could stay out, like focus on something. Yeah, like if I could focus on something, it would like help a lot. But like half the time it's like, all right, let me just look at all the flash art they have on the ceiling or on the walls or everywhere. And you run through that in like 5 minutes. I'm like, all right.
No, man, that's crazy. No, he gives me the remote. We've got our Netflix, we've got our Apple TV.
I would love that. I'm gonna have to tell my guy they need to put a TV in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's nuts.
Just bring a TV with you. Like, I'm sure you could bring like a nice 32-inch TV. They're like 2 pounds nowadays.
Yeah, hook it up to the phone and just throw on some Netflix, stream it on there.
Yeah. Although there's probably some purists who are like, you gotta connect to the pain, man.
Oh my God, no. It's funny, like I've also been going to the same guy now for 18 years. He's done all but one of mine. And the funny thing is I met him and my original artist at the same shop. The guy who did my first tattoo was like my right shoulder. He left after 16 years later. They reconnected and they are now partners with another guy in the same shop. So like when I went to get another tattoo from my guy, I was like, wait a second, I know you. And he's like, I know you too. He's like, how? I'm like, you did my first tattoo. He's like, really? And he looks at it. He's like, oh, damn, I did a pretty good job. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's holding up. Like,
yeah, that's cool. It must be weird to see your work like that years later. Now that it's all kind of like lived in. Yeah.
I'm the complete opposite. Every single one of my tattoos was done by a different person in a different state, or that's
cool. Like bumper stickers.
Yeah, like it's funny because I have like, it's just cool. Like go to different.
You're like a RAV4 over there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Winnebago.
Yeah.
Winnebago body. Yeah. So I think it just allows me to not remember like where I've been, but just get kind of like different styles, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my tattoos are all easy.
Yeah.
That's the fun part about the style thing too, like, because like part of, again, like the aspirations there is I want to do like the different styles, so like the poke stuff and like the Philippine where they tap with the bone needles and all that. Maybe not with bone needles, but you know,
hey, if you're gonna do it, may as well.
Well, I don't know if they can do it anymore with the bone needles, or if they do, you know, I think
New Zealand, bro.
But I don't know if they even there. I think they use metal needles now as well. But like, that's one of the things for me is I want to travel to all the parts of the world where they do different styles and have like one portion of my body just done in like all the different stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
You better hurry up. You're running out of time, my friend.
I know. I got, well, you know, maybe those will be the ones I'm doing when I'm 80 and I just don't, you know, it's like whatever at that point. But it's tough because like, and like you said, you're doing a big leg piece now. When you first started, did you approach tattoos the same way you do illustration where you're looking at the big picture, or was it like, I like that, let's get it, and then all of a sudden you look back, like, not to say you regret them, but do you look back and you're like, oh man, I could have done a sick piece here that like I just don't have the space for now?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not really worried about like real estate, whatever, and you know, I don't have necessarily like an ideal vision for the whole thing. And when I was thinking about this like piece, I tried to Photoshop it. It's very handy to be able to do Photoshop for that reason, but you know, and I love my tattoo artist, but he's kind of a little flippant with that stuff. He's like, yeah. And he put it on. And as we got started, I was like, this is too small. It's not going to fit. It's not going to be right. But at the same time, it's like, you know, that's part of it. It's like the tattoo itself is the art. It's like, yeah, it's going to evolve into what it's, and, you know, every time we would do a chunk, you know, I'd re-Photoshop it and just envision what could be, you know, and it's just like the schedule thing. I want to keep things flexible because if everything is planned out, then it's just like performing tasks that have already been planned, and that's boring, you know?
Yeah.
So no, and I don't, even if I got the worst tattoo ever, I don't think I would regret it. It's not like I'm doing like bikini modeling or something. And also like YOLO, and not for a very long time. So who cares?
You're from YOLO?
Well,
it's so funny. I live literally. I lived in Davis, California, and that's in Yolo County.
So okay. Yeah.
When I started hearing YOLO, I'm like, people really use that? It's, you know, it's something out here. When
I think it phased out pretty quick, though. It phased in and out pretty quick for the most part. Like,
yeah, I'm keeping it. I love it.
Go for it. No, but that's what makes it. That's what makes them fun and quirky. Is when everyone's saying it, it lacks any depth to it. But when people hold on to it, like, I mean, heck, I think I've heard Steve say "rad." And
I say "rad" all the time.
Like that's dope. Like
I say that all the time.
I do too. Like it happens. Like you gotta hold on to those like quirky ones that were mainstream when you were growing up at some point and you love them. But so now with the, I can't imagine. I can only imagine that like you said, you Photoshop the tattoos or a lot during the process. That must be so different because, like, for me, not being creative in that capacity, I roll in, I tell my guy what I want, I send him like 8 or 9 pictures for style stuff. He draws all what he wants to do with it, and I roll in. I'm like, that's sick. And so, like, even if he did fuck up doing it, I wouldn't know.
Yeah,
like, I'm none the wiser to it, and it comes out. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. But like for me, then when the tweaks come in, it's always like that last bit of the session where he's like, oh, just kidding. I want to do a little extra shading here. And I'm like, you're such a dick. Why? Why is it always these last minute tweaks? And sometimes I'm like, yeah, man, I can't do it. And he's like, it's only gonna take 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, it's the longest 10 minutes of your life. But like, that's got to be interesting for you then, seeing the whole process, because you know to some extent, you know what's going to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
I think that working with me has been a different experience for him. His name's Jacob Rutz. I should mention. He's from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Awesome dude. Highly recommend his work.
He just doesn't wear a mask.
Yeah, he won't wear a mask. When I got vaccinated, he said, "Good grief." So I'm not going to see him for a minute, unfortunately. But like I said, he's a nice guy. I can't judge him personally. But yeah, you know, because I knew what I wanted, and you know, we both respect one another as artists. Like, he's usually with a non-artist gonna, you know, be the one orchestrating the whole thing and does it, and it's usually just, here's some flash, I want to hear whatever. But you know, he knows that I have a very specific vision for it, and I'm gonna be watching him too. You know what I mean? So but it is a really cool experience because I've never tattooed before, and it's really awesome to see his interpretation of this particular piece, because it is a Vimmel build picture also, you know, super tiny details, and it's painterly, and and he's got a very painterly style too, which is very different than my own. So it's really awesome to be able to watch him do it. Except the part where he's on my butt, I can't see that. But
dude, I've heard that's not a. I've heard that hurts back there too. Like I've had
Not
stuff on like my lower back. What's up?
It's not comfortable.
Yeah, no, I again, eventually I'm gonna get it done, but that's one of the areas like I'm not looking forward to. That in the back of the knees.
Yeah,
So.
well, I just like when he's done a first layer and can spray that like lidocaine stuff on it to numb it out. I'm kind of a little bitch like that. I'm like, give me some more spray.
You gotta do what you gotta do. See, I have never like used the spray, and I've heard good things about it, but I'm also always like, I wonder how it impacts like the ink sticking and things like, well, not sticking, but the ink actually absorbing and everything.
Yeah, I've heard that it doesn't affect it much, but I have had some issues with healing on this. Now, a lot of that I think is because, you know, I'd sit for like 8 hours at a time and it's very saturated areas. And I do just have sensitive skin. So like the last time he was doing like a bunch of sky and stuff and a lot of the ink did fall out. And I don't know if it is that is because of the spray or whatever. But I think going forward, I'm going to do like less excessive sittings so that I don't have to worry about that as much. But yeah, he said he would fill this guy back in for free. So
nice.
I think it's a really good deal because I've been going to it for long. Huh?
They usually do touch-ups for free. Usually.
Oh, do they? Oh, well.
I don't know.
Depends. Special there, Steve.
Depends on how old it is and stuff like that, though. Like, I mean, and also I think like the level of it, like if it's within a recent period of time since you've had the tattoo, like I don't think you're gonna roll in 5 years later on a faded thing and be like, hey, I need a full recolor.
Right.
Like,
I mean, it also depends on the size too. I'm sure they're not gonna do. Oh yeah, I'll do a free retouch on a full back piece. Like obviously that's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
but
if it's small stuff like ink bleeding out a little bit soon after, I think that makes sense.
One thing that happened was I've got some lettering on here, and I looked at it when it was done, and he had done a typo. So
God.
He fixed it, but then he gave me the eggs for free, which was cool. So
that's
a typo. It's not a typo.
Yeah, well, yeah, tattoo toe. Yeah, but when I saw it, I was like, God damn. But it was an easy fix, and now it's like blood, so you can't even really tell what it says anyway.
There you go.
I'm like the complete opposite of that. I'm just like, yo, you better do what I want.
Yeah.
You fuck it up, I'm not gonna be a happy camper.
This is why I don't do things with words on them.
Oh yeah, I have some words, and it's so funny because my words. So it's English, but it's Arabic font. So
ooh, weird.
Steve tried to explain this to me the other day, and I'm like, I don't believe it. And then he showed me, and I was like, oh my God, this is like the weirdest thing ever. It's like an optical illusion almost.
But the coolest thing about it is, like, I've had like my massage therapist, you know, he looks at it and he thought it was actually really Arabic letters, and he was like trying to read it. So it's really convincing, which is kind of cool.
So if someone that can read Arabic sees it, does it just look like nonsense?
No, it looks like actual words, and they're trying to figure it out. And
but it doesn't spell anything in Arabic.
It doesn't spell anything in Arabic.
No, it's English. It's English.
Well, it's almost like you have your own little language there.
Yeah, right.
Secrets.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's kind of fun. I'm not a big word fan either, but obviously this is like a mantra of mine. But
I feel like 90% of the time when you see like failed tattoos, they involve words, and like I always laugh, but then like but they've like then like instilled fear in me about that. I'm like, oh man, like what if in the moment you're just not paying attention and you're like, yeah, that looks good. Like,
yeah. But also as an illustrator, I'm just biased. I think that pictures are the best way to communicate anything. So don't tell my literature professor boyfriend I said that.
Well, like they say, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So.
Yes, I'm on team illustration.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, and it's interesting too, because I think like from a font point of view and all of that, like, I don't know, I have a couple friends who have like large blocks of text written on them. You know, some of them it's like Sherlock Holmes quotes and things like that, whatever. And like, I don't know how much of the artist's talent you're actually utilizing doing that. That's always the thing that kind of like gets me about it. Is like, yeah, the tattoo's cool and it has a lot of meaning, but like, I love the artistic talent of the artists themselves. Like for me, that's, I think, one of the biggest parts of the tattoo. Like, yeah, there's cool stuff I want tattooed on me, but like, I love to be able to see someone do their art and really bring it to life.
Yeah. So. No, I mean, that's definitely cool. But what it comes down to is it's like, it's for the person's body, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, it's just like an illustrator. You want to go to the illustrator that does your style, that can kind of do the style that you want, and if you're just getting I just got 3 dots, and my girlfriend was like, yeah, we should probably call and make sure that the tattoo artist does hand tattoos. I'm like, it's 3 fucking dots.
Yeah, they'll do
Like,
it.
she's like, yeah, there's some tattoo artists that don't do hands. I'm like, then they're fucking shitty. Like,
Yeah.
any tattoo artist should be able to do 3 dots on a finger.
Well, I think that's just like 2 different types of tattooing. Just like there's 2 different types of illustration. Like if someone wants me to illustrate a pamphlet, it's not like I'm really utilizing my artistic abilities.
Right.
Just like with tattooing, like, some script or whatever. I mean, there's definitely some art to that as well, but I'm sure there's a lot of like just tattooing like a band or something. Like I'm sure that there are some tattoos like that is a waste of my time and ink, and I'll just refer that to somebody else, because at that point you're the printer.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just a different side of it, just like illustration. There's those parallels.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I definitely, if I want geometrical shapes or a geometrical tattoo, I'm gonna go to someone who's dope at that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I want the best geometrical tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
Tyler's just like, I don't even fucking care. I'm just gonna go wherever.
I like going to my guy. He knows me. We do good work together.
Go nuts, scribble away.
Yeah, have fun with it. I trust him, and I think that's the biggest thing though too. Like for me, it's a trust thing. Like because I also know in like your situation, like if they fuck it up, they're gonna fix it. Like that's how it goes. So.
Or it's just part of the journey, man.
Yeah. And you know what? And and again, that's why if you mess up with a drawing, it's hard to tell.
I don't believe you.
I'm like, you guys are both on crack. That's all I gotta say.
Steer clear of words and no one's gonna know it's messed up. That's the trick, man. That's
the thing is, like, I trust my artist enough that even if he did mess it up, it would be like a good mess up. You know what I mean?
Hopefully.
Ass tattoos out there.
I love it. I mean, there are literally subreddits just dedicated to failed tattoos. Those always like, they're fun.
They have shows that basically have.
Oh yeah, like there was that whole there was that whole cover up show for a while. I forgot about that.
Ink Master just did a cover up show now.
Cover ups are amazing because they're like
funny.
a whole art form in themselves. Like you've got to like.
Yeah,
because it's still going to show through, so you have to kind of like design it around. Like I love seeing people do cover ups.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think there's a lot of logistics that a lot of artists can do a cover up, but like knowing how to place it and how to do it right, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also like it's funny too because like you think about like a cover up from the image point of view of what you're covering up. It also depends like if how your skin reacted to that first tattoo. So like again, my first tattoo, 18 years old now, it actually has scarring under it because it's all like solid black. So there was a lot of deep digging in there, and it raises from time to time. Well, if I got something so if I got something to cover that and they did it wasn't as harsh of a job. I mean, it would be tough to cover full black, but like there's a very good chance that the scarring that's under there from that would still come out from time to time when it raised. And it's just like, it's what you deal with. But
it's pretty cool though. It's like your Hulk moment when you raise out your tattoo.
I couldn't tell you what causes it though. And honestly, it's like it's parts of it. It's actually a sun. Like it's a black sun. So the entire sun is filled in black. And like sometimes like one arm of the sun will like raise. Sometimes it's the whole thing and there's like a skull in the middle. So the skull doesn't raise, but the whole thing will raise. It's really weird. But
wow, maybe you're in tune with the cycles of the celestial bodies.
Maybe not intentionally, but maybe
your body's just fucked up and it does weird things.
You just start getting into tarot. You never know. Do you guys cover tarot decks?
So we usually don't on our Kickstarter segment. And the reason being, like this week, there's 9 new Kickstarter playing card decks that came out. On the tarot side, there's probably another 10 to 12.
Wow.
So like there are a ton of tarot decks that come out all the time. And it's a very like specific market where like if you're not into it, trying to talk about we could talk about the art from a appreciation point of view, but talking about it from a usability point of view is way outside of our purview. But we had a woman on a while ago for one of our community corner episodes, Laura, who is a tarot reader, and we kind of learned about the whole process and what she looks for in decks and all that stuff. It was really interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Like standard Pokedex too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, but you would have to have a pretty good understanding of the meaning of all the cards to really be able to assess how successful those illustrations are.
Yeah, 100%. And so like from us, like it again, it's easy to say, okay, oh, the artwork itself looks very cool. But if you're looking at it from like a traditional influence of you know, this kind of deck or that kind of deck, like there may be small nuances that they missed that do have major meaning. And yeah, we're not in that realm. So it's
Yeah.
it's a tough one.
We don't really dive into kind of criticizing the artwork itself or anything like
Yeah.
that. That's kind of a slippery slope to get into, and
We had some headbutting with artists when we're like, oh, I don't really like that colorway, and they're like, fuck you, and you're like,
Really?
all right,
Touchy
yeah,
artists like that?
yeah.
Ooh,
I mean,
they
I
just
still
learn how to handle
say,
criticism.
we still say like
yeah,
little
I mean, this,
things,
yeah,
but
yeah.
we won't dive into like,
Yeah,
oh,
we're
that
not
deck's trash.
dissecting it in a meaningful way. And a lot of times when we look at like a Kickstarter campaign, it's about the formulaic approach to building out the campaign. You know, did you tell the story? Is the story impactful? Do you have enough images of what you're trying to actually show? Tier structure, things like that. Like in playing cards, a lot of times, you know, the ultimate goal is to sell as similar, I'm sure, with you. The ultimate goal of selling puzzles is to sell as many puzzles as possible. We'll sometimes see people who, for a Kickstarter campaign with playing cards, throw a t-shirt on as a tier. And it's like, that's all well and good. You want to sell t-shirts, but make it an add-on because then you're still selling a deck and a t-shirt versus those t-shirts are now an added expense that aren't going towards your printing goal for playing cards. And it's not cheap to print playing cards. And so you now have an added obligation and an added backer who isn't actually supporting the ideal main goal of the campaign. So it's like an interesting kind of approach to like how to factor in what the best formulaic approach to Kickstarter is, when in reality there's no perfect formula, but there are certain like aspects that you always want to have. Risks and challenges is a primary one too. Like, do you have a risks and challenges? How well thought out have you understood the potential risks? Because I think that tells a lot about the potential for further delays, for, you know, trustworthiness in a creator, things like that. Because if you haven't thought about even the bare bones stuff, like we designed the deck, it's print ready, we're good to go. You know, it's a little tough. So
yeah, and it was you know, deciding how to set up the Kickstarter, because I had three main things. I had the description of the product, the process of making it, and then just selling puzzles in general. And I was like, what order do I put these in? And I realized that one of the things that sets my stuff apart is the arduous nature of the illustration process. Like people love seeing that. So that's kind of up top. And then at the bottom, I talk about the quality of the puzzle and whatever. And while the quality of the puzzle does also set it aside, because it is a unique quality of puzzle, it really is the art that people are buying it for. And so for some people, it's their first puzzle. They're buying it for the art.
That's cool.
And so, yeah, you got to kind of think about what is the main selling point of this product and get that up top. Yeah, but, you know, also having done two others before gives people
that trust.
They can get peace of mind.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like a lot of times, you know, we not to say we only look at first time creators, we look at basically any creators, but you know, we can identify creators who have been doing it for a long time, and we'll say, hey, this is a perfect example of a campaign that you could kind of templatize your first campaign off of. But a lot of times for first time creators, you can tell where it's 90% text based. There's no pictures of what you're actually trying to do. And you know, a lot of times people forget that the whole purpose of Kickstarter is a sales pitch. You know, it's what it's all about. And I think, you know, the approach you take with it makes a ton of sense, because that story and eliciting that emotion is how car salesman operates. Any salesman operates, is making that emotional connection to what you're trying to sell. And so the earlier in a campaign you can establish that connection and establish that wow factor or get any sort of emotional reaction, the more likely someone is to maintain interest in the campaign and read through the whole thing and find out about the quality and find out about you and decide to support the thing. Whereas ultimately, you know, you see sometimes people go fully text-based, or they go in a different order where it's like, we're going to be printing with the best printer in the world. And it's like, I don't really care about the printer. I care about the product. And so you're not the printer. It doesn't tell me anything about it other than like, cool, you thought about high quality. Like, it's a good selling point, but it's never a primary selling point, at least in my opinion. So,
well,
they say, oh, we have a high quality printer, and we know the high quality printers, and they're not printing by one of them. So it's like,
yeah, that's always a tough one too. And
it's not really high quality. It's higher quality than Kinko's, but it's not high quality playing cards.
Well, one of the, at the risk of outing myself, one thing that's really helped is I started in sales.
Nice.
When I graduated high school, I went straight to Dell and sold computers and software and peripherals to businesses. And so I hated every second of it. Like, I hated it.
That's because it's
so much. I can't tell you. I was good at it and I made decent money. You know, because I had to do that in order to like build some sort of safety net so that I could go to art school.
Yeah.
But I hated every second of it. It was 7 years. But a lot of the stuff I learned there, I use now. Like how to do a kick-ass spreadsheet, how to manage my financials, how to talk to people and not be awkward and weird. Like, and all that stuff has served me well. And so, you know, yeah, I feel like I put my time in. I'm not going back to that cubicle, but yeah, that definitely was a good foundation for me. And I wonder if without that foundation, what my art career would look like now, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? And who knows, your artistic success could have varied significantly. Your art quality and your art style and the actual likelihood of, you know, just high quality, enjoyable art probably would have been similar or the same, but the reach you have probably is what benefited the most from that, and being able to really understand what draws someone in. I mean, again, as much as I don't think everyone's built for sales, it's almost like an industry that everyone should have some experience in, because sales ties to everything. Life in general is selling yourself. You know, I mean, you go and you make friends, you're subconsciously selling yourself to another person with the with the hope that they will like you enough to maintain contacts, you know, and I think so many people don't realize that, like, it sounds terrible saying it, but every moment of your life is basically a sales opportunity in one way or another, if you think about what you're actually trying to sell. And so the Kickstarter side of it almost becomes easy once you treat it as like a sales kind of approach, because you're building an emotional connection, which is more so sales now than sales back in the day. I'm sure sales, you know, especially early on software sales, was like, I have the solution to your problem that you don't know you have yet. Come buy this stuff that you may or may not need because I need that check. And it's like,
that was the major thing that I hated about that sort of sales. Like, and I did work with home consumers too, and like selling them this 29% APR loan for a Dell 400 or whatever. But you know, with now, like, I mean, sales isn't slimy and gross in this job, because people who want cool puzzles are there, and I am here to give them cool puzzles. And the sales part is just, here are the cool puzzles. So it's not like there's any kind of manipulation that has to go into it. It's just finding the people that want your product and making sure that product is good enough for them, and then letting them know how good it is. And so, you know, like, I did have a really weird, guilty, gross relationship with the sales process when I was at Dell. Nothing against Dell, I guess, but it did feel gross because I didn't feel good about it, and like, you know, trying to talk people into buying stuff they really don't need. But I feel like now I'm like fulfilling a need, like I'm fulfilling it as service, which is nice, because, you know, moms need puzzles.
No, so don't dudes.
So does Steve. Yeah, so does everybody. Well, and that's the cool
dudes, but moms need them the most.
Probably. Oh my God. Yeah. Listen, I'm sure kids will. Yeah. Distract kids. Distract yourself. Maintain your sanity.
Yeah.
Dude, it's interesting to see though too, because like you said, you didn't have a good relationship with the sales approach back in the day, and we've actually seen, like, in technology sales and sales in general, that mentality is now a toxic mentality, where that's not what sales wants to be anymore across the board. Sales now, like, and it's funny because I have a good friend who does sales, and I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, like, the whole mentality of it, he's seen it go from like what it used to be to this more empathetic approach. And he's like, we now have instances where we'll go to a new client, we'll say, tell us what your problems are, and we'll walk out of there saying, hey, listen, like, sorry, we don't have a solution for you. Whereas 15 years ago, it would have been like, well, we can kind of make this do what you need it to do. And then you have this tenuous, always kind of butting heads relationship with a client because you're providing them a subpar product that they didn't really need. Whereas now, like, salespeople are okay walking away from it being like, that just wouldn't have been a good fit.
Yeah. And I think that it's got a lot to do with access to information. Consumers are just like, more savvy, you know, like you can,
yeah.
you can go buy a car and you can Google it first and they'll be like, don't let them charge this. So the customer more so has the upper hand at this point, and there's far more choice. And yeah, as far as sales goes, like the consumers caught on to a lot of advertising schemes. Like we know how they get into our heads now. And so a lot of marketing companies are now like trying to make their marketing seem more organic. So they get some Gen Z to come in and design some memes that will appeal to their market. But I think that honestly, what's worked for me has, like I said before, just earnestly and honestly joining and participating in the communities of people that want my products, and just like being myself. And you know, it organically shares too. Like, and the blog posts have been really helpful for that, because it gives people something interesting to share rather than just a Kickstarter link. It's like, what about this link that tells you about this process that is super interesting? So people will share that, and you don't have to market it. People are just gonna let it go viral or whatever. And that's the aim, right? Is to have something go viral in a good way.
Yeah, hopefully not a bad way, but
yeah, not a viral infection.
I feel like there are also people though who would say the opposite side of that, like any viral is good viral, but I don't know about that one. So
no, I am just on a quest to never get canceled. That's my goal in life.
Yeah, no, you know what though? I think you live a good life and you think about that, and you have a very good chance of not getting canceled. It's the people who think that who don't consider that, who lack that empathetic approach, that are the ones who usually end up getting canceled.
Not that I'm just being good so I don't get canceled.
Yeah, no, you're just a good person. That's good. Right? Yeah.
I love that this just evolved into me like trying to express what a virtuous person I am.
There is nothing wrong with that. You live a good life. It's happy. Yeah, and you enjoy yourself, and that's the key there. So while we're out of here, we're going to ask if there's any last minute questions that want to come in on the chat. I know we had a question way earlier from Jamie, but I forgot to ask it. So I apologize, Jamie. But with that said, one question that I kind of had in mind was, you know, you mentioned earlier that you're going to that you're in the works of potentially doing a playing card deck. What are some of the concerns or challenges that you see transitioning from illustration of puzzles to playing cards?
Well, the gig is pretty specific. It's for a restaurant, and I did a cutaway for him for the theme is fable. So the cards will feature different fable, like, you know, the vintage illustrations for like Aesop fable and stuff. So something kind of similar to that. It's going to be a fine line trying to make it not look like furry art, but you know, I love the furry community.
You might get a different segment than you expected. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've always wondered if I could ever just dip into furry art and do like one and not let it sully my whole career like a filmmaker doing porn. Like, can I just do
unanimous
furry?
just create kind of a unanimous Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Not under your name.
I need a pseudonym. Yeah, a furry pseudonym.
Nobody would ever know.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's fable, Aesop fable illustration stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of different considerations on it. I'd like to do an individual character for each of the cards, which would be a lot of work. And, you know, I'm going to need to work out a deal with the client as to how much he wants to invest. And then, but I'd like to set it up so that it is also my product that I can produce. So I'll figure out all those details. But if I'm going to do it, I want to do it like 100%. You know what I mean? So some of the things one main thing I've learned from doing different projects, like the puzzle project and then the board game I did and books and stuff like that, is to make sure that I have the manufacturer in mind and their file requirements. Because good Lord, when we did the board game, we went through 3 different manufacturers to set it up, and they all wanted 3 different types of file formats. And so that was a nightmare having to do that. So I want to make sure that I've got a good manufacturer in mind. It has to be like, I want the highest quality. I'm willing to pay more and charge more for like the best quality I can find. Because, you know, like I said, if I'm going to spend all this time doing all this art, like I don't want to end up producing a deck of cards that is unremarkable in any other way, you know? So it needs to be a special item. It needs to be something that someone would be proud to give as a gift, you know, something that a connoisseur collector like yourself would have to have in their collection. So that's a main consideration. And then again, just learning about the main factors that card people find important, like jigsaw puzzle enthusiasts are very picky about the amount of dust that's in the bag, the quality of the cut, whether it's a ribbon cut or a random cut, like the different areas of solid space, like does the layers of the puzzle piece separate? There's all these different factors that you wouldn't even consider initially. So
yeah,
I definitely want to learn from you guys and other card enthusiasts, like what are the main things that that need to be on point in order for it to be a remarkable deck, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. We got you.
Well, and I think the fun part about it too, and you know, I'm sure they can do this on the puzzle side, at least to some extent, with things like foil and whatnot with playing cards though too, especially on the collector side. You have so many opportunities to use things like foil or like gilding on the side of the decks and embossing and all this with the boxes themselves. You know, the tucks become a very big part of the creation itself. Whereas I feel like with puzzles, while puzzles, you have the picture of the puzzle and the information, you're probably not finding people who put foil and embossing on the puzzle box.
Yeah, and I'm just now starting to see more interesting things like that, like Brad Albright, I think he just did a 3D puzzle, so you do like the 3D glass and stuff. So there are people starting to do more adventurous stuff with the puzzles, but I am very excited about the different novelty opportunities for a card deck. Because I know that there's a lot of different things you can do as far as in the production. But again, like, you know, I don't want to make this elaborate card deck and then find out that card people hate embossing or something for dealing or whatever. So it's very important that the utility of the item comes first and design around that rather than making this big flourishy mess that no one can use.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, you know, it's a bunch of things that you take into consideration. You know, which part of the community is it for? Is it for cardists? Is it for magicians? Is it a collector's deck? And that kind of will give you the direction of how to style the deck, you know, and what you can add to the deck. And yeah, it's just market it. It's just like puzzles, marketing to the right section of that community. You know?
Yeah, and I'm realizing that the experience in the puzzle community, I mean, it's basically just monetizing and producing any product. It can be applied to that. You know, it's the same structure, it's the same process. And so it's just a really helpful thing to have been through because, now I can apply it to any other product too, which is cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Oh, for sure. Well, we look forward to seeing what's in store in that deck.
Me too.
Yeah. And puzzles going forward, because honestly, your style of work itself is just awesome. Like I said, it definitely gave me that whole like Where's Waldo vibe, and I learned something new today about, you know, the style and everything behind it. But I think the puzzles themselves are such a cool, fun, and nostalgic aspect, which I think is really in line with playing cards, where you have that like childhood nostalgia that so many people remember of puzzles and playing cards and board games and all that.
Yeah, and I love analog too, and it's just a way to get out of your phone. Like, I don't know when the last time you did a puzzle was, but it's surprisingly relaxing to just focus on a thing. And, you know, that's one of the main selling points that I have at the bottom of Kickstarter in puzzles and stuff. And also it's on FEMA's disaster emergency checklist thing for your go bag, because
that's cool,
along with books and games and stuff, because when the power goes out, you need some entertainment. So, you know, that's a factor. And, you know, another reason I love putting my art on puzzles is it forces people to look at every single detail that I've drawn. And really cool. So that is a little self-indulgent aspect of it too. It's like, look at it.
That's what you do it for, though. That's a fair point. And that's really an exciting way to look at how to get people to notice all that little effort that you're putting into each and every bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, for sure.
Very cool. Well, everyone, if you have any questions for Holly, make sure to hit her up on Instagram. All of her socials and her website and the Kickstarter link are actually down in the description below. While you're at it, make sure to go and check out her campaign currently active on Kickstarter. There are 5 more days on it at the time of this airing. So if you miss out, make sure to check out her website. But I definitely recommend you checking out the puzzle she has. Laura, thank you so much for the support. We really do appreciate it. Honestly, Holly, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk about your whole kind of illustrative process, the organizational side of it, Kickstarter, and everything we've hit on here. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it's so fun to talk about this stuff. 'Cause like I said, like, I don't have coworkers to nerd out about this with. So anytime you just want to call up and talk about packing orders or something, just let me
Hey,
know.
we have a group chat open with you, and that's
Yes.
what it's for, to talk about
Yes.
packing, talk about whatever we want.
Talking about packing, talking about dust and puzzle bags.
We could talk about Cheez-Its and goldfish. Who cares?
Oh my god. But I love it. Yeah, now we really do appreciate you coming on. You have the distinct honor of being our first non-playing card creator on the show.
Well, thank you.
Definitely not our last. We're hoping to have many more and really dig into the whole world of what creation on Kickstarter really means. But we appreciate you taking the time today. And honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure.
You as well. I'm so glad that we met. You're both very lovely.
Oh,
thank you. You as well.
You
and
are as
everyone out there, we appreciate all of you taking the time to sit around with us and geek out over puzzles today. We hope you all have a wonderful Sunday. And while you're at it, make sure to like the video, share it with someone you think would enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel.
Ring the bell. Peace.
See you, everybody.